What's up, y'all? It's TTC, aka the ThunderConductor, and we back for another YouTube video and Twitch stream. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And if you're on Twitch, make sure you follow and ring the bell. We do this once a week on YouTube and every other week on Twitch. So let's get right into it. I got a question for y'all. What is your favorite storm list in cEDH? We're gonna have some people say, come on, Kark Sakashima, baby. All day, every day. That's the OG. Come on now. You cast Kark, cast Sakashima. After that, we don't know what's gonna happen, but we know we're about to win the game. How about the new school though? Nadu, come on. Who said green can't storm? This commander by far, I feel like I'm talking about this every time we meet. It's by far, I've never seen another commander hit cEDH by storm, and I'm very happy that the community keeps growing and brewing and having fun with it. But I want to talk about something different today. I want to talk about the beautiful but new RAL Monsoon Mage. This is a legendary human wizard that says instants and sorcery spells you cast cost one less to cast. And it costs a color to red. You know what I'm saying? So like, okay, that's cool. And it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell during your turn, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, RAL Monsoon Mage deals 1 damage to you. If you win the flip, you may exile RAL. If you do, return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. It's a 1/3, and it costs only, like I said, only colors in red. So we're talking, this is just, helps us ritual off. But that's not it. It talks about flipping it. And we talk about this backside. It turns into RAL Leyline Prodigy, where this is now a legendary planeswalker that says RAL Leyline Prodigy enters with an additional loyalty counter on him for each instant and sorcery spell you've cast this turn, okay? You can +1 them until end of turn. Instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, so you keep that ability. You -2 them, okay? RAL deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets, and you can draw a card if you control a blue permanent other than RAL. Okay, kind of cool, okay? But we have an ultimate. That's what we love about Planeswalkers. It's the ultimate ability, baby. Exile the top 8 cards of your library. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell from among them this turn without paying the mana cost. That is fucking crazy. And it really, honestly, really got me excited when I first saw this commander. But if you know who even more got excited about this, one of my homies named Holden. And so I want to very quickly just introduce him. Come on in here, Holden, bro. Talk to us, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Hey,
excited to be here.
Hey, bro, greatness. Come on now. When you do greatness the first time, we get to run it back, brother. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm doing well. Yeah, I was out in Fishbowl 4 out in San Diego a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I actually had like random people when they saw my Giralf deck, because I brought it with me there, and they were like, oh, that's cool. I actually saw some deck tech interview with somebody who was on that deck out from Arizona, and I just kind of smile like, yep. It's pretty sick. So it's always a good feeling.
No, 100%. And so, you know what? That deck was crazy. I'm not gonna lie. That was a really powerful deck. But from what you've been talking big about this deck, I think this one actually may surpass the last one. Not to shit on Giralf, but I'm gonna be honest. I really have been loving what you're saying about this commander. So just start from the top.
Yeah. For
the people, first of all, who don't know you, tell us a little bit how you got into cEDH, and also just talk about how you fell upon RAL.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. My name is Benjamin, but online my handle that I go by is Holden or Holden Pryo.
Yeah.
And that basically just comes from, I've been playing Magic since like 1999, 2000. And back when there were things like Type 1, Type 2, 1.5 extended formats that don't exist anymore. And then, I actually didn't even get into cEDH until, I guess, January of 2023. So it's really only been like about a year and a half of consistent play.
Yes.
But I've always been a legacy, modern, hopper, vintage gamer, pioneer when it was still fun.
Yeah.
And I'm all about eternal formats. I'm all about doing broken, busted stuff. Huge fan of like turbo go fast decks, aggro decks, prowess decks, combo decks.
Yeah.
I want to put something on the stack, and I want to put my hands up in the air and say, hold in priority. I'm going to respond to my own thing. So that's what I like to do in Magic. And as far as kind of what got me into this commander is kind of exactly what you're talking about. It's a seemingly mono red commander, very easy to cast on turn 1.
Yes.
Not that hard to flip, and it also gives you access to a second color identity because technically the backside is blue in addition to red.
Exactly.
So yeah, I saw this and I was like, all right, Krakashima, no offense to Ken Bauman, but step aside and we're gonna start flipping. We're the real is it flipper here, you know. So
Okay.
it's a super fun deck. Goes fast. Wins on turn 1, 2, 3. That's it.
Shit. Okay. So then you kind of tapped into my first question. I was going to ask what deck archetype this is, but it sounds like it's turbo all day, every day.
Yeah, if I could sum up the deck archetype itself in just one kind of phrase, I guess it would just be it goes burr. The deck, you put the key into the ignition when you sit down at the table. There's no chair, there's no seats in the car, there's no steering wheel, there's no paint, there's no frame. You're just straddling the engine, holding for dear life as you turn the ignition and hope for the best. And it's awesome. It's really, really powerful, and it's really, I think it takes a lot of people by surprise because there really aren't a lot of decks like that left in the format. Obviously there's Roxai. The Roxai is kind of a known entity as to what you're going to do with it and what you can do and what's possible. So this is a brand new way to just pop the F off, so to speak. So
dog, I love that. So man, I love that just go burr. And I love the analogy of like, take all the pretty stuff out the way, we're getting the job done. So I mean, honestly, like before we get into like some tournament recap, like with this turbo list, this go burr list, what play style pushes you towards a win? Like, is it just purely proactive, or is it any level of adaptability? Or talk to me, brother.
I mean, I think probably the biggest thing that we have in our corner is the fact that we have 2 extremely broken cards, like historically from Magic's past, stapled into our commander, essentially. And so we get so much advantage, tempo and mana advantage from the passive front half of the commander, just because it essentially, I mean, especially if you have, you know, Mana Crypt, Lotus Petal, Jeweled Lotus, you know, any of the fast mana, Rite of Flame, any of these kinds of things, Simian Spirit Guide, I mean, which is basically the entire deck is broken down into fast mana rituals, hand tripping card draw, and then ways to copy spells and eventually our win cons, right?
Gotcha.
So, and storm win cons. So because of that, that means that we have this super high density of fast mana. So that's the front half, right? So that card that I'm referring to would be like a RAL effect or a Goblin Electromancer. These cards that say instants and sorcery spells cost 1 less. Essentially, it's a medallion effect, a ruby medallion, except for not just for red, it's for any of our instants and sorcery. So that effect on the front half, hugely powerful.
Okay.
And then obviously the effect I'm referring to on the back half is the ult.
Okay.
And that -8 is very similar templating to a very, very broken card in Magic's history, which only recently came off the ban list in Legacy. It was banned in Legacy up until like just a month or 2 or 3 months ago or whatever. Is Mind's Desire. So Mind's Desire is, you know, 4 generic and blue for a sorcery with Storm, and it says shuffle your deck, flip the top card, exile it, and you may cast it this turn without paying its mana cost. And then it just has Storm. So it's just whatever your Storm is, you basically just flip that many cards off the top of your deck and you just get to just play them all for free. It's kind of like Omniscience for Storm, you know, for however many cards you storm off with.
Exactly.
So now if we look back at the ultimate on RAL, that's busted. This says flip the top 8 cards off the top of your library. And what's crazy is with Mind's Desire, they had the foresight to say shuffle first. This doesn't tell you to shuffle first. So here, if we want, we could use a top deck tutor. So you know what card is really busted to cast for free off of our ult from RAL? Mind's Desire, which we're playing in our deck. So we can just play like a mystical tutor, put the Mind's Desire, because it's a sorcery, on top of our deck, and then ult RAL into it, meaning that we cast any instant or sorcery that we flip out of the top 8 cards, one of them being Mind's Desire, for free. And then we just, you know, kind of go off from there. Obviously, that's just one of many very broken lines that you could go for.
Right.
But that will, you know, coming back to the main point is this commander is 2 busted cards in one. It's a cost reducer, it's a medallion effect, it's a Goblin Electromancer sort of effect, which is essentially what an entire archetype was built around in Modern, Legacy, and even in Vintage at one point of, Red Blue Storm, essentially, like Gift Storm, they used to call it, because they played Gifts Ungiven. So that's the front half. And then the back half just has a 0 mana Mind's Desire, which, and this is the crazy part, if you flip it on your 6th cast, because of the way that the coin flip stuff works on the front half.
Yes.
So let's say you get lucky and you 50-50 the coin flip on your 6th instant or sorcery. So you've cast 5 instants or sorceries up to this point. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. You just always say no if you win. You don't flip it. You go to card number 6, and let's say, you cast whatever, a lightning bolt, targeting whatever.
Right.
On the trigger, you win the flip, you get tails. You say yes this time finally. So now you flip, you go to the backside. Okay. And what does the passive say? It says add loyalty equal to the number of instants and sorceries that you cast this turn. Or it says it comes into play with it. It's not even an ETB trigger, it just enters with, so you can't even respond to it.
Yes.
So that thing freaking enters with its normal loyalty 2 plus the 6 instants or sorceries that you cast that turn. So now it enters with 8. That's the sweet spot. That's the magic number, because what can you do then? Instantly ult, killing RAL. And where does RAL go? Because for some godforsaken reason, he's a commander. Back to the command zone. So now we just flip the top 8 cards of our library, of which I told you these are cards that we make a lot of mana.
Yes.
So now we hit all these rituals and mana, and we recast RAL, and now we're just chaining off. It almost reminds me, it feels kind of like the way that Teferi Chain Veil feels when you start kind of chaining those effects, because you just keep killing it, putting it in the command zone, bringing it back out. Like once you've done it once, it's super hard to fizzle at that point.
Yes.
And it's very easy to do it once on your first or second turn of the game, depending on your opening hands, but definitely your second or third turn of the game.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of like the big picture of what I saw when I was looking at this. And this all came because when this card got spoiled and I was really hot on draw when I was playing the draw deck, I was, I feel like to keep up with Modern, even though that format is an absolute dumpster fire right now. But I was, I keep up with the times,
Yes.
And I'm like old man yelling at clouds, like back in my day, Modern was cool, you could play Lingering Souls, or whatever. It's so stupid. But as I'm watching that stuff, who I love watching is Aspiring Spike, and he's a fantastic brewer, and he's always got his fingers on the pulse of the format. Right. So him and a bunch of other people cracked open Ruby Storm in Modern with 4 copies of RAL. And I was thinking, I'm like, okay, that card's really good. It's a legend. It's technically blue-red color identity. It could go into my command zone. And I can clearly remember, in fact, I screenshotted it. I can clearly remember the day that I built the deck list in Moxfield and put the little cEDH tag on it, and then searched. I was like, oh, I wonder what other people are doing with this deck after I built my version. Right. And I looked, and I was the literal only person with this commander with a cEDH tag. I mean, at least in a public deck list.
Right. Exactly.
And that, to me, as you know, I love to brew. I love to be, like the weird guy at the table who's like, oh, my, mono blue zombie storm commander, and people are like, what the hell? And then you get to go off, and they have to read all your cards, and you have a blast. Yeah. So that was a good feeling. It was like, all right, nobody's really on this. I haven't seen anybody put up results or do anything with it or even register the deck.
Yes.
And it is really that powerful. And I'm also not limited to being in just a mono color, even though it kind of is mono red. Like if you look at my deck list, it's a lot of red cards.
Yes.
So yeah, that was what drew me to the commander.
Man, I love what you're talking about, bro. Like, and before we get into all the win cons and everything, like, I got to give you your flowers, brother. Like, you're not just a great pilot and brewer, you also you kick butt at tournaments. And so if I remember correctly, you've recently done well with this commander in the tournament scene. Please tell us a little bit about that, brother.
Yeah, so just for those who didn't end up watching the Duralf deck pick, and if you haven't, I highly recommend you go back and watch it. It's super fun. We have a great time there. But I talked a little bit about our local scene, and I'm in Tucson, and our local scene is stacked. We got a bunch of people who put up a bunch of really great results, who really know what they're doing, who are competitive pilots, who take time into their craft and playing, and really, they strive to get better. They ask really hard-hitting questions about, tried and true lists, and they take risks, and they stretch themselves to try to build better versions of decks and then pilot them better. And they take pictures of their opening hands and they ask questions about them afterwards. Hey, would you have taken this line? Would you have done that? So these are the people who I'm playing with, right? These are people who like really care. And like I said, they put up real results. For example, right now, actually, the Papa Squats Nick, he's one of the guys that we play with who's on Magda all the time. He's over on Moderately Anonymous MTG stream playing a game right now as we speak over there. And he won Pact of the Peak. Straight up, he just took the whole fucking thing down. Crushed it.
What? Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So he's an example of this is just some guy who I play with on Thursday nights. That's the homie, but he's just, like, that's the competition I'm up against. And so when he's in the pod that I'm facing him down, I'm like, this isn't just, oh no, careful, Magda's got 5 treasures, or and like, you got to be worried. Like, no, you need to be worried at every stage of the game. He knows what he's doing. He's a tight player. He's always going to be. So those are examples of what I'm talking about. But anyways, we had a local monthly, which we do once a month. And, I ended up actually just basically running hot as hell on the tournament. So I brought a slightly modified version of this list. I've made some changes since that, based off of my experience. But I went, first of all, I think I won on turn 2 or turn 3 the first round of the event. Then I won on my turn 2, everyone else's turn 1 on the second round of the event. And then that was the first round of the event. I think I mulliganed to 4 or 5. I can't remember. And then I won turn 3. I was already locked for top 4 based off of the way that a lot of people have been kind of playing to the draw a little bit more with tournament cEDH. And I'd love to talk about that at some point in the ROG side meta and what that's kind of done to tournament structure. But that's kind of a separate point. So then I'm walking into round 3 and I did the tournament math and I'm like, you know what? I'm locked for top 4 already. All I'm really playing for now is my pod position. If I have the highest ranking when we go into the finals, I get to be in first position.
Right.
And I crushed round 3 as well. And then went into round 4. I was in 4th position and I don't remember if I mulliganed or not. I think I might have mulliganed to like 6, nothing crazy. And I ended up losing. I went for a line in that one and I didn't get there, and it was pretty obvious. And also I'm pretty sure someone had an early Dranith in that game too, which is pretty rough for this deck. So I ended up losing that round, but it was completely inconsequential to my record. So at this point I'm 3-1. And then we go into the finals round, and I actually had kind of like a date plan with my wife to go, and we were going to go play pickleball with some friends, and I'm looking at the clock and I looked at the table and there's a guy in the pod who actually really wanted the prize. It was like a Japanese foil Strixhaven Demonic Tutor that the store had, which was pretty sick. And I don't play foils, and that's also just not the version of the card that I want. I already have my Demonic Tutor. And so kind of looked at the table and I was like, listen, do you guys want to split the prize? Like, just go for a draw, because I am in first position on a deck that I just ran so hot. And we can play this out if you really want to, but I don't, we had some conversation there, and there were some really good pilots there. In fact, the Kinnan pilot, the one who wanted the Demonic Tutor, who we split with, his name's Brandon. He just yesterday was up in Phoenix, and he took down a Phoenix event, and he got a Lion's Eye Diamond as the prize. He crushed it up there. Total badass. So that was my tournament run. I mean, it felt, honestly, I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase when people talk about tournament magic, like, the older formats that you talk about this a lot too, which is bathrooms and snack bars. It's a bathrooms and snack bars sort of deck where you win or you lose, like, in the first 10 minutes of the game, and then it's over. And like, my experience has been you did win. Like, I mean, sometimes you have a 20-minute crazy storm turn, but that's not, if you're playing tight, it normally doesn't take that long. So crushed the event. It honestly felt like a total, and this is no shot against my opponents at all, but it was just kind of the way the deck was running hot and how I was playing. It felt like a breeze. I mean, it was like so smooth. Every line I had, and this was through interaction and stuff. It's not like people were just, oh, I'm F6,
Right.
No, like, this was people interacting, people playing tight, and we just, found the line multiple times. So it felt great.
Man, I absolutely, first of all, first flowers to you. Like, if you all know, we all love Magic the Gathering, but family first, always. You know what I'm saying? It's my first flowers to you for taking the time to say, you know what? I really want the win, but look, I've got to go play pickleball with the family because I'm here. Like, I love y'all, but that's my wife. But the second level of just the fact that you were able just to, it's I don't know if y'all ever heard the what is it called, the Migos song "Walk It Like I Talk It." You know what I'm saying? Like I kid you not. Like when I hear that story you tell me about, like, look, we can do this if y'all want to, but do y'all want to just split the prize? Because honestly, are you sure? Are you sure? Because like you can see my record. I'm not trying to talk big. I'm not over politicking y'all. It's gonna happen. It happened 3-4 times already in the prelims. So I love that you just came with that energy, and it really shows like the level of expertise that you came with, but also what the deck came with. And so I'm hearing a lot of great things. And before we get into win cons, I gotta ask, be real. You kind of brought up the Drannith situation, but what are some hurdles this deck this has to navigate? Like, what are the weaknesses to the deck?
For sure. Yeah. I appreciate it. And also just, the person I was talking about who just took down that Phoenix event for the LED, he's in the chat right now. Yes. I think he says Sky Turtles there. That's Brandon. Dude, way to go, buddy. I didn't get a chance to talk to you in person yet because it was just Saturday or yesterday, but dude, way to go. That's fucking badass. You deserve it.
Yes.
So as an example, you can actually, I put a bunch of time and effort, probably too much, into this primer. So there is actually in the primer itself, there's a small section there under strategy.
Yes.
Which one of the things that we talk about here, or in the introduction section, sorry, why not to play this deck? Like, what are its weaknesses, essentially? And in the weaknesses section, one reason why you might not want to play it is because you don't like winning super quick. Another reason why you don't want to play it is you don't want to feed the fish. So if you're in a meta where, it's all kind of mid-range soup, slowed down, everybody's on turn one, Heuristics, Mystic, that kind of thing.
Yes.
It can be tough. Although that said, I've very handily won through those already.
Yes.
But then the biggest one, honestly, the main weakness and the thing I don't want to be playing against is like a super Staxy meta, basically a Drannith or Rule of Law effect.
Yeah.
A Trinisphere is not really the end of the world. I mean, it definitely slows me down, but because when you copy effects, and there's a lot of like bonus round copy, anytime you cast a spell, copy it, like that kind of stuff effects, you can do really weird things to circumvent a Trinisphere sort of situation. And there's really not even a lot of decks on Trinisphere. I mean, coincidentally, Kinnan, as an example, is the sort of deck that could be on Trinisphere. I'm not sure if that local player is on it or not right now.
Right.
But it's, Drannith is the big one that's tough, and that's the reason why I'm playing Lightning Bolt in my deck. And I went back and forth. I hemmed and hawed before the event. Should I be on Fry or Rending Volley? These effects that can't be countered that deal like 4 or 5 damage to a white or blue creature or planeswalker sort of thing. And I just didn't end up playing them. I was like, you know what? Sure. Yeah, we have a hard time against Drannith, but go to the rest of the table. And my experience has been with Stax effects, it's usually bad if you're the one who's removing them. Unless your hand is so loaded and you remove them and just instant speed win right then, and you have a bunch of backup counter magic and whatever, sure. But if you're the one removing the Stax piece, as you very well know, a lot of times you're just unlocking the other players too. So it's like better to kind of wait to let somebody else remove it.
I could not agree more. I tell people all the time, I literally say this in so many games, like, if you remove the Stax piece, please understand what you're agreeing to. You're taking accountability that you are unlocking the entire table. And Drannith is one of those, like the Rule of Law effects, we don't see those too often as much as we may have seen like a few years ago. But right now, Drannith, even though it's on the slight downbend, it's still like a card that we will see quite often. And to this day, you'll see like maybe some of the amateurs, even tenure players, remove the Drannith, think they can push for it. Everyone stops them, and then the person after wins, or the person after that wins, you know what I'm saying? And it really is based on who can turn the corner the fastest after that Stax piece is removed. And honestly, it's like, I'm gonna be honest, like when we're talking about weaknesses, these feel more like personal problems than actual weaknesses. Like you saying, oh, you don't like to win fast. Okay, all right, that's a personal problem. Or you don't like to feed the fish. I'm gonna be honest, I've seen turbo players feed fish and win. So I'm sorry, like that's once again a personal problem. Yeah. You want more colors. Once again, that's a PP. You know what I'm saying? And this may not be the deck for you. I'm just being honest. That's a PP. Like we can talk about that. We can go back and forth, but you just want more colors. Okay, this is not the deck for you. We don't have anything else to talk about. And so So the only weakness is a 1/3 creature that honestly everyone wants the Dreaded removed. One of the most powerful strategies in our format is Breach. Come on, Underworld Breach with Lion's Eye Diamonds and not Flusterstorm, but Brain Freeze. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna be honest. I was expecting to hear, well, this archetype. Nah, like I'm gonna be honest. In this meta we're currently in, I think, what is it? Right, hard work and preparation, a little luck. And I'm gonna be honest, like you've touched all the bases here, brother. I kid you not. Like, I'm be honest. These weaknesses are not weaknesses. You just basically told people, if you don't like the deck, this is personal problems. I don't know what to tell you. So,
and the thing is to be super clear, a big part of the reason why I even brought this to my local monthly, because it's not like this is the only deck I play. Right. I mean, if you look into my deck lists on Moxfield, I mean, it is unending. I think I looked last, there's 100 decks in there, or 97 or something like that. And I've literally had a Moxfield since January of 23. So, I mean, this is the amount of brewing that I'm doing, and I'm consistent with it too. I'll go back to old decks and I'll refresh them and blah, blah, blah. But anyways, the reason why I brought it is because of where I see the meta currently. When I went out to Fishbowl in San Diego, I mean, granted, it's a West Coast event, so it's very, very skewed and tilted towards all in turbo, go. Yeah. And then, oops, I fed the hell out of the fish. I'm going to look at the table and just be like, you want to draw? And that was so many of the games. It was crazy. I can't tell you. I would be looking over at another table while I'm waiting for my player to figure out how, I don't know, state-based actions work or whatever. And I look over at the table next to me, and there's people triple Rogthai in a pod and Najila, and it's like one person's ad nausing on top of somebody else's ad naus, and somebody else has a Flusterstorm and a Pact of Negation, and they're all just kind of staring at each other in this Mexican standoff with guns to each other's heads, and kind of being like, well, we could try to resolve all of this, or we could just take a draw. And in the early rounds of the tournament, it actually just kind of puts you into this prime position because you get points, and other people who don't get any points, they get 0 points based off of the way the current tournament structure is, at least with the top deck events.
Right.
It makes it so it's this kind of weird, like, meta where, in my opinion, the deck that benefits the most out of the current meta is Rogsod.
Yeah.
And it's because they can just jam. I mean, dude, one of the lists in the top 4 or top 16 had freaking Leyline of Anticipation in it. Like, actually. And they just went turn 0 Leyline, into land Dark Ritual Necropotence on somebody, or Lotus Petal Dark Ritual Necropotence on somebody else's turn before they went to their turn.
Right.
So when you have a turn 0 Necropotence, you can't get much faster than that.
No.
Like, that stuff is bonkers. So basically looking at that meta and looking at the way how the format has really kind of slipped away from stacks, there's not a lot of stacks, and there's so much of this mid-range up until this Rockside meta started to emerge, so much mid-range deck situation happening with like Pinnin, Blue Farm, Najila, Sisay, all these like advantage engines in the command zone, or just, Ristic Mystic, now with the new Polywog Frog, Esper Central, Smothering Type. I mean, all these cards they just give you so much advantage in one turn cycle.
Yes.
That, what's a really good way to stop that? Don't give people a turn cycle.
Yes.
Just literally give them the option to get set up at all. And now their mulligan decisions are like the first, like that's like the mid-range, that's like the middle of the game. And then the late game is turn 1 or 2. And if you totally shift that for somebody else, you change their window to win, to play, and to interact. And now the hand that they kept that has a Pact of Negation in it, they can't cast it because they just lose the game on their upkeep. So it's like there's all these weird things that start to happen where you like invalidate certain cards. You make it where like you kind of like you skew the dynamic of tempo in the game. And that's a big reason why I think this commander is good, is because it gives you so much mana advantage in the command zone, which is a huge tempo boost, Yeah.
Man, I love that last point you said about how this turbo meta can really warp how we see certain cards. Like you brought up one of the great examples about Pact of Negation. One of my members of my community is in Martian. He plays Alando. He literally recently just talked about wanting to take Pact out of his list for misdirection, and it wasn't much that misdirection was the better card, but he literally said, like, right now decks are so fast, I never want to cast Pact because I never will have, especially in the Simic deck, have that 5 mana because I'm not on Kennen. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, Kennen's not in my command zone. And so it just, like how you said, it just invalidates a really good card that unless you're running Angel's Grace or multiple stifle effects, and even then, that's Christmas Wonderland that you have that in the opening your opening hand. No one wants to keep.
And that's a huge tempo negative play, to be fair. I mean, sure, you don't lose the game to somebody trying to go off, but on your turn, now you got to stifle your own Pact trigger on your upkeep. You just went down 2 cards and mana.
Literally,
that feels bad.
Exactly, literally, it makes honestly Pact even more of a turbo card where, like, hey, look, I'm using Pact because it's a 0 mana counter spell that I don't have to pitch a card like with the Force of Will. I'm trying to win the game. This is not I'm defending myself. No, this is an offense, or no, I'm not. This is not an offensive card where I'm trying to stop you. It's me defending myself while I'm storming off and trying to do my thing with my win. And so honestly, like, that's such a powerful point. Like, I want to give a quick shout out to Digital Loan right
Cyclone?
Here. Yeah, Cyclone. Thank you so much. He said, just a quick flowers to you as a brewer. He says, boy's a mad genius. I've never seen someone that brews like this man does. A brewer's advantage for sure, but I've never seen someone that has such a deep knowledge of cards. Lover of the years. I missed the last part.
Over the years.
Over the years. Okay. A deep knowledge of cards over the years. I kid you not. I gotta agree with him, bro. Full of flowers to you, bro. So honestly, we've touched on so many amazing things. I want to give straight into win cons. But before we do, if you're looking for ways to support the show, there is a plethora. Starting off with our ThunderConductor proxies, my way to increase access to this amazing format that you call cEDH. Next, we have the ThunderConductor merch, the softest, cleanest merch, this is so comfortable. Check it out, link in the bio down below. Also, join the ThunderConductor community. It's free. Check it out, link in the bio. But we also have amazing things happening in the Thunder Legion, our Patreon community. And if you want extra perks like playing on our live streams, shout outs on our streams and YouTube videos, and free proxies and discount codes, please check out the Thunder Legion. I want to give a huge shout out to to our Mono Red patrons, Wave Ashira, Bissy Baxton, The Prater, B-Rad, and Deep Dumpster. Y'all rock, and you keep the lights on in a way that you could not even imagine. And last but not least, if you want to say, AT, I don't want the Patreon, the proxies, or the merch. I just want to say one time for the fun time. I love what you do, and I want to support you. Don't even worry. Check out the link in the bio. You can buy me a coffee. It keeps me up and keeps the lights on. But with that said, come on, Holden. Let's get to some win cons, bro. How we winning? You talk. Come on. You telling me winning on turn 1 and 2. Turn 1, 2, 3. What's the win cons, baby? Come on.
Yeah, of course. So this is one of the reasons why I think a deck like this is pretty well positioned, is because it isn't this crazy, outlandish, like, jump through 10 different hoops to try to win. It's just do all the things you want to do anyways. So essentially the short version is we win the way you're supposed to win when you play Izzet. We win through Breach with Thassa's Oracle, Brain Freeze, the table out. I put Mind's Desire in there, even though it doesn't itself win the game, but it almost always does end up winning by the time you go off. Grape Shot actually does win the game. If you cast a Grape Shot when Storm is 8 and you've already altered your RAL, you're probably going to just do it 6 or 7 more times. So it's just, you just keep casting and keep casting. Like, you recast it out of your yard. There's so much recursion in this deck. That's a big part of the reason why I like the way I've brewed this version of the deck, is I give a lot of redundancy in my list. So it's like, oh no, what if they exile my Grape Shot? It's like, who cares? I'll just lightning bolt the table a million times. Or I'll wheel a bunch of times, or I'll brain freeze the table then wheel, or I'll brain freeze myself then Thassa's Oracle. And that's just with Breach. You don't even have to win with Breach. The other crazy way to win is to just Mind's Desire for 1 billion and just pop the fuck off. Like, you're gonna end up just casting like a bunch of spells off the tippy. Then in addition to that, I have this super sick tech in You Find Some Prisoners, which is this awesomely powerful utility card that just kills artifacts. Like, it kills, Trinispheres, it kills null rod effects, or whatever I'm worried about that's on the table, or just kills a card that's giving somebody a bunch of value that they're going to win with, like Adkinnon puts up Assault in play and tries to untap the first time you can use it. And this card gets way better. As a reminder, every card you look at when you're looking at my deck, try to evaluate it through the lens of it costs 1 generic less, as long as it's an instant or sorcery. So now this is 1 red mana, instant, kill an artifact. So this is 1 red mana, shatter, right? That's the floor. And we've talked about this before when I was on your channel last time. Floor and ceiling, floor and ceiling.
Exactly.
That's always what I'm thinking about when I'm brewing. Always thinking about how big is this room, how vertical can I go, and how low to the ground does it start? Because if the room is really shallow at the start and it goes really high to the ceiling, I got lots of room to breathe anytime I see one of these cards in my deck, and they're always going to overperform, and I can do whatever I want. The second part of this card, though, is the interrogate them part. Exile the top 3 cards of target opponent's library, choose one of them until the end of your next turn. You may play that card, and you may spend mana as or mana of any color to cast. So essentially, this is a Praetor's Grasp or like a Mnemonic Betrayal sort of effect, except for it's just the top 3 cards of somebody's library. You pick the best one out of there.
Gotcha.
So you know, that in and of itself doesn't win the game, but I use it the way that some decks use looping a Praetor's Grasp or looping a Mnemonic Betrayal sort of effect.
Yes.
And when I've got a bonus round going, and I've got an Underworld Breach in play, or I've got Past in Flames out of my graveyard, which is another card I play, or I Mizzix Masteries this card, you know, and you get to hit a couple copies with it. I had a game where I basically had infinite storm, infinite grapeshot damage. I could draw my entire deck. I brain freeze the table. I cast a Thoracle, and I did all of this after you find some prisoners, someone to cast their One Ring off the top of it, because I don't play the One Ring because that card costs 4 mana and only draws me 1 card. Because as a reminder, we're not getting another turn. It's just 4 mana draw 1.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I 100% would agree with that. I think it's great in mid-range decks, but if you're 4 mana is such a high cost for 1 card. I'm sorry, but continue. Yes, go ahead, brother.
I mean, if you're out here flapping your wings like the Derevi and you're doing it the chippy way, then sure, the One Ring is sick because you have so many ways to untap that you can break parity on it super easily. And then plus you get to play Manamo. And I don't play that card because we don't need to. I need more red mana producing lands in my deck. So anyways, those are all the main win cons. It's just doing all the good broken stuff. And I didn't put intuition in that list because I see it more as like a tutor. Because intuition doesn't just find me my wins, it finds me everything. Truly. Like there's so much redundancy in this deck. You can just always get what you want. Get 3 counterspells. Get 2 wheels and a recursion piece. Get the 1 card you need and 2 recursion pieces. Get a breach, a brain freeze, and an LED. Get or a recursion piece, a breach, and a brain freeze. Like you can just do it any different way that you want to, and you always find what you're looking for. And it only costs 2 mana in this deck. So 2 mana intuition, and I'm gonna keep coming back to this, but the mana tempo advantage is huge.
Wait a second. Yo, hold on. I gotta throw this flag on the play. I didn't think about that. One of I wouldn't even call this a weakness, but one of the things when I'm playing my Satya list in Jeskai is that setting up for an intuition, the biggest hurdle is making sure you can tap for 3 mana and then untap if you're doing the Savine's line and do for 5. But granted, if Savine's was a colorless and a blue, get the fuck out, bro. That honestly made me a believer. That made me a believer right there, because honestly, you can win on turn 2 easily with the in-step first turn in-step intuition for 2 mana. Get the fuck out of here. Keep going, brother. Keep going. So basically,
I'm just saying, like, intuition's not in my actual win con list. In the same way that probably Minds of Desire, I guess, technically shouldn't be, because it's not the card that wins the game. It finds the cards that win the game or whatever. Everything else in there, though, is a real win con. Like Bolt, Grapeshot, Brain Freeze, Thoracle, Wheel. You find some prisoners, and I guess technically Underworld Breach itself doesn't win the game, but it's the way you end it out.
It's part of the loop. It's part of the loop cards. That's cool. That makes sense. Like, I mean, honestly, these are all amazing win cons, and you kind of took the words out of my mouth. Let's talk about tutors, because we have to get towards these win cons either way. So honestly, like, we could start off with intuition. You've already kind of talked a little bit about that. Talk to me, brother.
Okay. So I mean, this is just like any intuition breach line. So basically, you intuition, and depending on the board state and what you need, if you're choked on mana, then you go for like LED sort of cards or ritual cards, because as a reminder, all the rituals are so much better in this deck. One of the best cards in the deck is Jessica's Will. 2 mana. And it always makes somewhere in the range of 4 to more mana, especially if somebody is drawn a bunch with whatever, with like Ristic Mystic sort of cards, like card advantage cards, and they have, 8, 9, 10 cards in their hand, and you 2 mana Jessica's Will to make 8 to 10 red mana and get to look at 3 cards. I mean, that's pretty sick. But normally when I'm going off, I've already used a bonus round or something like that. And bonus round is just red, 1 generic for sorcery that says this is for all players. It's important to remember this. This affects all players, not just yourself. It says, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell until the end of turn, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, that player copies it and may choose new targets for the copy. It doesn't say they may copy it, they must copy it. So it's important to note that this also makes Pact of Negation stuff weird, where previously a Pact of Negation wasn't out for a player, and now all of a sudden if they try to Pact of Negation something, they can get a double pact, and if they're smart about it, then they'll have one pact fizzle, like they'll have them target the same thing. But if they're not smart, I've seen it happen where somebody double packs like 2 important things that are on the stack, like my 2 copies, for example. So like I go to Jessica's Will and I get a Jessica's Will copy. So then they pact and they get a pact copy. They counter both of mine, my original and my copy. And now when they go to their turn, they got to play 10 mana or they die. So a lot of times there's like weird fringe things that happen with bonus round where people like can't wrap their head around like how it works. The other crazy thing is when you cast a bonus round, not just once, now it's in your yard, aka my second hand. So now it's time for me to start using recursion effects like Mystical Retrieval, like Recall, Legends, cEDH All-Star Recall, like Mizzix's Mastery, like Past in Flames and Underworld Breach, and the new card from Bloomburrow, Festival of Embers, which is a 5 mana red enchantment, which for whatever reason is actually super cracked in his deck. So you get to play all these recursion cards. So then you just recast your freaking bonus round, and now that one that you cast, it gets copied because it saw the original bonus round like passive for the turn, like the effect for the turn, and it resolves. So if you cast one bonus round and it resolves, and then you cast it one more time, you end up with a total of 3 bonus round effects for the rest of the turn. So that means everybody for the rest of the turn, anytime they go to cast another instant or sorcery, they're getting 4 total copies, the original plus 3. And at that point, if you're at that point in the game, and I'm looking at the table, I've got gas in my hand, I've got a couple open mana, and I'm just kind of spinning my wheels, casting and copying my bonus rounds. If you're letting that stuff resolve, you've lost that game. Like, it is very, very rare for you to come back from that. Maybe somebody Angels Graces me that turn. I just brain freeze the table out and pass the turn a wheel at instant speed on somebody's upkeep or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's ways.
You said if you let the bonus rounds, you've lost the game. Go ahead.
I mean, really. Like,
that
if
makes so much sense.
Anybody used to play Red Ruby Storm back in Legacy, that's the card you got to watch out for. Bonus round.
Wow. Yeah. My God.
It's just bonkers. Think about, you cast a Desperate Ritual for 1 red mana, because remember, it's reduced.
Exactly.
Cast a Desperate Ritual, it's just red and a generic, and it says instant, add 3 red to your mana pool. So you cast that spell for 1 red mana because it's reduced. You get a RAL trigger, and then you win or lose the flip, whatever. And as we talked about, if you're up to 6 and you win the flip, then you flip the Planeswalker. But otherwise, you just freaking you have 4 more or 3 more copies with bonus round. That's alone just turned 1 red mana into 12.
No, that's 12. Yeah, that's 12 fucking mana for 1 red. You've netted 11 mana off 1. Get the fuck out of here, bro. That's crazy, dog.
Yeah, and what's crazy is it sounds like, oh, well, that's never gonna happen or whatever. But how many cards did we actually cast? All I did was I cast my bonus round, and I recurred one of my bonus rounds out of the yard, and then cast a ritual. That's not that hard. It required very little setup, and my whole deck is set up. So
exactly. No, for anybody who's ever played a Storm list, Storm lists are the one type of list that I find that these this never happens scenario, it just happens because you're seeing so many cards. Because part of what Storm is, the 2 parts is mana advantage and card advantage, and it's the reason why Krark and Sakashima, another example, is so scary, because they consistently can storm off when you have all the copies on the stack. And honestly, this is a Krark and Sakashima all in one package, and instead of having the copies in the command zone, you have the mana advantage in the command zone, and then leverage these are the copy effects. So no, I do not doubt that you can get that, have that consistently happen across games. Not at all, bro.
For sure. I mean, Chip and I were, me and Chip the Ripper over here, Digital Cyclone, were playing in a webcam game the other night just for fun, trying to tune list, whatever.
Right.
And we actually, there was a Kurokashima in the pod, and they had Kurokashima on board, like they had Kurok and Sakashima on board, and they either fizzled or they didn't have enough to go off, or they didn't have a lot going on in their hand. We went to my turn, and I just spun my wheels a bunch. But the best part about this deck is you make a bunch of mana, you spin your wheels a lot. In most decks, you can't do anything if you don't have card advantage, or you don't have an out or a win. In this deck, you spin your wheels a lot, but what's happening every time you cast a spell? You're flipping a coin for RAL. So I just spun my wheels a bunch. I ended up winning the RAL, one of the eventual RAL flips, and I ulted him. And as I was ulting him, I can't remember exactly what they said, but something to the effect of the Kurokashima player said, like, well, I don't really think that they can like win from here. And I flipped, and that's no shade against them. Like, this is a new deck, so it's like kind of hard to tell and evaluate. But I flipped on the wheel a bunch of permanents. I flipped 5 permanents, meaning you can't do anything with those. They're permanently exiled. So that's the downside, the scary part, right? Oh no, what happens if you exile your breach? Keep going, idiot. Let's go. So you just exile I exiled a bunch of lands and mana rocks, whatever. Couldn't do anything with any of them. But I also flipped a Wheel of Fortune, a Windfall, and a gamble. Yeah. And it's just game over. Like if you don't understand the end of the story, is I won the game. No. But that's I mean that's what this deck does so consistently. Dude. So yeah, the win cons are kind of like all the good blue-red win cons, but tuned up to an 11 because of the commander. And because of how you build your deck, you play so few creatures. Like, if you look at my creature suite, like if you turn tags off and just look at the creatures, there's not that many. Nah. And I just keep cutting them. Like, and one of them's a land. So it's not even actually 9 creatures, it's 8,
Really 7, because it's Simian Spirit Guide.
Right, yeah, I'm never casting that.
No.
So, yeah, every single one of those creatures makes mana, for the record, except for the one that wins the game in Thoracle, the one that is a land in Pinnacle Monk, and then the Polywog, which is just a freaking Heuristics study that is on a 1/3 that people, for whatever reason, haven't wrapped their head around the fact that this card is so completely broken. Like, I can't even trigger it really in this deck to evolve it. Doesn't matter. Go ahead, cast your 0 drops. I'm drawing cards. And eventually, at some point, I'll trigger it just inadvertently. Like, I'll trigger it just by casting like a Bergie. A Bergie or and that's what's crazy about it is you it's so little setup to actually make it work. A Stormkill and Artist triggers it. It's like what the hell. So, anyways,
no, 100%.
You're just playing good blue-red win.
I feel that, man, and honestly, thank you for retouching everything on the win cons. Like I feel like you hit it really good. But are there anything else that the audience needs to know about these win cons? Because honestly, it all makes sense to me. But just like everything is compact but flexible at the same time. Anything else?
Important to note in the. Sorry.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, important to note, there is a lava dart in the deck. So in a really weird fringe world, you could probably, like, depending on people's totals, you could loop lava dart. But it only does 1 damage. So that's why it's not in the win cons. Lava Dart is just a 1 red mana from Judgment Block, deal 1 damage to any target, and it has flashback, sacrifice a mountain. If you wouldn't flashback it, you would just do the normal loop with like Underworld Breach or whatever. You would have to, because you'd run out of cards in your deck to exile the escape cost, people would have to be at pretty low life totals. But you could use it as a way to build up a bunch of Storm, take out some lock pieces on board, like take out somebody's whatever creature is holding down, like maybe an opposition agent, you happen to have a mystical tutor in your hand that you need to go get a Past in Flames to go win the game or bonus round or whatever. But anyways, you could technically use that if you really wanted to. Right. But the other really important point that I want to mention is we are purposefully, a lot of people look at this list and they think, oh, well, if Grape Shot's good, other cards like Grape Shot must be better, right? Like Storm, I want a Storm, let's do the Storm. And Mind's Desire and Grape Shot are my only real like Storm cards besides obviously Dragon Freeze. Right. But Ignite Memories is another card that I ran in the list initially, and I refuse to play that card anymore. That card is, I think it's 5 mana. It's an instant or sorcery, and it has Storm on it, and it says target player reveals a card at random from their hand. Yes. Deal damage to them equal to the mana cost of that card. So it's a sorcery, So that card, I actually had somebody, I think they were at 23, 25 life. They were an Adnaz player.
Right.
I Ignite Memories them, and I had Storm of like, I don't even know, 20 or 30 or some huge amount of Storm.
Mm-hmm.
I aimed basically every copy at them, and they lived handily. Like, the thing is about that card is, what's good in our format right now is to play low CMC cards.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Ad nauseum is a card. And so, yeah, a lot of people are on very low CMC cards. That makes this card way worse. And sure, technically, it's another way to deal direct damage with Storm, but it isn't actually deterministic, and it's not even close.
Right.
And then the other big one to remember that I'm not playing is one that I did try out, so it's going to come in and out of the list a lot depending on meta, but that is Empty the Warrens, the 4-mana sorcery in red that's a common that says Storm, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. There's that, and then there's the 4-mana red counterpart to that just got released in Bloomborough that's called Storm. I got it right in front of me somewhere. Storm Splitter.
Okay.
And that one is a 4-mana haste otter wizard, and it's a 1/4, and it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a token that's a copy of Storm Splitter. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step, and they have it haste. So out of the two of them, I tend to like the Storm Splitter version a little bit better because you can just kind of slam it early and let it sit there. And I eventually just came to the conclusion: when am I ever doing that? When am I ever playing a slow game in this deck? Well, I'm doing that when I'm reading anyways, so it gives a shit. So I cut it from the list. I mean, it did some cool things with cards like Battle Hymn. That just are a red and a generic for sorcery that make 1 red mana for every creature you control. So like it goes off with like ritual effects like that.
Gotcha.
But it just was not that good. I mean, you can wizard cycle for it with step through. There's a lot of like cute things you can do, and believe me, I've thought about them. But yeah, we cut that.
No, 100%. Definitely, I definitely can feel you there. Yeah, okay, that's really fair. Like, and definitely with the Ignite Memories, I can definitely see the reason for that exclusion. And even with the Empty the Warrens, like they don't have haste, and even with you finding a solution with them, which honestly this is very creative, where it naturally synergizes with your deck very well. But I definitely love what you said at the end there. Like, look, we're not trying to play a slow game, so why are we? Do we want to sharpen our sword or bolster our shield? You know what I'm saying? Like, are we preparing for the worst? Or are we just going to put our best foot forward? And if we fizzle out, which doesn't happen, but if we fizzle out, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But the stronger we make our sword, the less likely that is able to happen. So I definitely love that. I love that, brother. Yeah, man. Well, shit, you've talked honestly. Like, I love the further breakdown the win cons. Once again, I love this. So before we go to tutors, like, talk to me. Is there anything else we should know about these win cons, brother? Or even notable?
I guess the only other thing I would say on that last note about Empty the Warrens that I'm sure maybe some people are thinking about, that believe me, I've thought about this, is I also was on a package. Like, if you're going to play Empty the Warrens, I wouldn't fault anybody for playing that, first of all. I don't think it's like objectively bad.
Okay.
I just don't play it in my version of the list because I don't think it's where I want to be. And for my testing, it wasn't good enough. But also, I'm one person brewing this deck. Almost no one else is playing it. There's like a couple other people playing it who I can shout out later. But I mean, it's not like I have a lot of testing on it. So if you want to play it, play it. But the big thing to remember is Empty the Warrens does get reduced by RAL, whereas Storm Splitter doesn't. Also, when you ult RAL, you can't cast Storm Splitter off the ult, but you can cast Empty the Warrens off the ult. And there's a bunch of like recursion cards in my deck, like for example Mystic Retrieval, that return an instant or sorcery card from my graveyard to my hand, or like Captain Flames that lets you recast an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. And those cards you couldn't do anything with Storm Splitter if Storm Splitter was in your graveyard. Whereas with Empty the Warrens, you can cast it and then recast it again and get the double effect of Storm each time. And so if you're on the Empty the Warrens package, then I think you also need to be on Skirk Prospector, which says it's 1 red mana for a 1/1 that says stack a goblin, make a red mana. And then you also need to be on Battle Hymn, which is that red and a generic sorcery, make 1 red mana for every creature you control. And then big spicy tech is you also need to be on Brightstone Ritual, which is just a popper all-star, absolutely cracked magic card, 1 red mana for an instant that Brightstone Ritual says add 1 red mana for every goblin in play.
Every
goblin in play. Yeah. So those are like, that's kind of a package deal that goes together. It's Skirk Prospector, Battle Hymn, Brightstone Ritual, and Empty the Warrens. And those 4 cards, I ended up cutting 4 cards from my deck to just put 4 objectively better cards that didn't need to synergize with themselves. Like they weren't like so parasitic with each other. They were just good in my deck.
Gotcha.
So that was my choice, but yeah, I guess you could choose to do that. But yeah, that's it for win cons.
No, 100%. No, thank you for breaking that down. I love, if I can just add on to what you just said right there, I loved your perspective and say, hey guys, first of all, it's just me and a couple other people, and there's tens of thousands of people who play cEDH. So let's make this clear. Like, more, if y'all want to give more input, please join the RAL community. And even more than that, understand that I love that you brought there's different play styles and people who are just going to prefer those cards. And so y'all don't ever feel like there needs to be one list that, oh, this is the RAL list. No. Okay, here's the skeleton. We know we ain't what's our card? Rebound, or what was our card that we can't live without? That we were talking about earlier. It was the copy card.
Oh, bonus round. Yeah, you're playing a bonus round no matter what.
Yeah. Bonus round. Like there are skeleton cards, core cards that we can't get rid of. Bonus round is one of them. However,
I'd say this deck has like an 80 card, 85 card like skeleton. Everything else, there's probably a good 10, 15 cards you could flex, really.
Exactly. And so within that realm, please don't be afraid to explore. And I love that you encourage that. So man, like, amazing breakdown to win cons. Let's keep it going. Let's talk about tutors. A quick question that I had before we dive all the way in is, we brought up top deck tutors being something that's really useful with the ultimate ability, and right now I'm only seeing mystical tutor. Now, I'm not a huge fan of personal tutor, but I wanted to ask, is that a card you play tested or thought about maybe wanting to run, even though it's sorcery speed, because of the synergy with the ultimate with your commander?
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's one of the cards that's the highest on my list of interesting cards to play. And if you'll notice, if you go to my deck and just scroll a little teeny bit down further in the sideboard, it's like the next card in the sideboard, basically. Personal Tutor is... My sideboard only has 14 cards in it, and frankly, you could probably cut a couple of them, but they're all very tightly curated cards that I believe are super close. And Muddle the Mixture is another one of those tutors.
I love
that
Muddle.
is close. It's close. The problem with Muddle is Transmute doesn't get reduced by RAL.
And it's a discard.
Also, this deck is base red.
Yeah.
So getting blue is actually hard for this deck a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Once you started going off, you make treasures and stuff, so then it's fine.
Right.
But you never want, like... The way I think about adding any card to the deck at all is, the first question is it an instant or sorcerer? If no, it better be broken. Like, if you're playing another permanent, like, it's gotta be really good. Okay, so is it an instant or sorcerer? Which that one is, but it's in a weird subgenre where it's like, it is an instant or sorcery, but you can't activate it off of a RAL flip or a Mind's Desire.
Yep.
Because all you can do is cast it. You can't, it's a discard effect out of your hand, right?
Exactly.
It's also not reduced by the cost. But then the big one is, it can only get 2 or less, which, yeah, sure, that finds you your Breach, your Thoracle, your Brain Freeze, or whatever. But a lot of the stuff I want to find is that, like, weird mana cost. Like, a bonus round is at 3, a Reiterate is at 3. You know, some of my rituals and things like that are at 1. And then, like, trying to find, like, a Mythic Mastery is at 4, Festival of Embers is at 5, Path in Flames is at 4. Like, weird, some of these cards are like that in a strange way.
Exactly.
So, but with Personal Tutor, it's just a sorcery. It's a sorcery with a blue pip in it. It's really close. I'm really close to playing it. Yeah. And that's why it's one of the 14 cards that are in my considering.
No, 100%. I love that. And if I can just add in one thing just for the audience, remember, you all, Muddle the Mixture is actually, you can only get 2 drops. But if you notice, we can go down the mana curve down below, similar to what Holden was telling us. Contrary to what's popular in cEDH, because of the mana discount our commander provides here, he's able to competently and comfortably run 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 mana cards that, unfortunately, even though the 2 cost is the highest pillar in our deck and Muddle can get that, it's still hard to do the blue pips, and also it's just, there's still powerful things like our bonus round that we can't get off that. I just want to add on to that for anyone who have brought up the Muddle, make sure only getting 2 drops, and just know that it's not just that.
Scroll down a little further, look at the mana pips too. Underneath that graph. You'll see I'm base red. I'm 54% red.
Shit, man, I love this, bruh. Well, keep going though. Keep going. Tutors, keep talking to me, brother. Like, we see a gambler.
We talked about intuition. Yep. Intuition just wins the game with a ham sandwich. But I mean, literally, just get anything you want. I have so much recursion. And when I say recursion, I don't just mean cards that can get stuff out of your graveyard or that can play cards to your graveyard. I'm talking about cards that can do that and have flashback themselves.
Yeah.
So they kind of play this fake Savine's Wreck impression, but in blue-red. So Mystical Retrieval is an example that we talked about earlier that has flashback for just 2 in a red, which is, by the way, flashback costs are reduced by RAL. So this is actually 1 in a red when you flashback it out of the yard.
Right.
Past and Flames, same thing. It costs 5 mana out of the yard, but with RAL it costs 4.
Right.
So we have a lot of these like recursion sorts of ways to like go off from there with Intuition, and Intuition can find you anything you want, and in a last ditch effort you can hold it up as a way to find like triple counterspell, or like a counterspell and 2 cards you need to win in the following turn, and then counterspell somebody's win attempt, and then now you have 2 cards in your graveyard that have flashback that are super good, like
Gotcha.
you know, cards that draw you cards like Desperate Ravings or Faithless Looting or stuff like that, you know.
Got you. Cool.
And then and then Mystical Tutor, I think, kind of doesn't need much of an explanation. Our deck is oops all instants and sorceries, and it does that. And it's a top deck, like we talked about, for the pseudo Mind's Desire effect of RAL's ult that you can set up to be just completely broken. And then also Gamble is just, in my opinion, if not the best tutor in Magic, then it's like just behind Demonic Tutor. And that's, I know that's a strong opinion, but like, I guess the only other case that you could, in my opinion, that you could comfortably make is to say something like a Vampiric Tutor, or something like Demonic Consultation, because those only cost, I'm looking at, they have to cost 1 mana or 0.
Yeah. And
they also have to cost, if they're going to cost 2, they have to be 100% the best tutor that you could do for 2. And obviously Demonic Tutor is, you know, the tutor.
Right.
But Gamble just, in a deck where you want to fill your graveyard anyways, I don't care if it's red in Tomb. Like, okay, whatever. And also, this deck, you know, you copy it so many times and you bonus round stuff that like sometimes it just doesn't matter. You just gamble for like 4 copies of Gamble and just set up everything you need for a breach line. All right, cool. We win from here.
Right.
So,
man, I love that. No, yeah, I definitely agree with the school of thought that Gamble is the best tutor for when you have breach decks, and for even more, I'm guessing for even more for this deck, because we have such a large recursion package. I definitely can see how Gamble is just a superstar in this list, especially because also it's that 1 red pip, and we talk about how we're a red dominant deck, so hitting this like in the middle of the storm turn probably just puts the biggest smile on your face, honestly, brother. Shit.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so good.
I got you.
It literally solves all your problems. If you're like, oh, I don't know, how am I going to get out of this jam? And then you go to draw for turn, and it's just Gamble, and you're like, cool, I win the game. It's just, you literally do everything you were worried about, you can answer with a Gamble. It's so cool.
I love that, brother. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'm not on Solve the Equation, which some people might think about. And I cover all this also in my primer as a heads up, like cards that you could play in other blue-red shells. But I mean, frankly, it's pretty obvious, right? I'm not on Transmute Artifact. I'm not on Reshape. I'm not on Solve the Equation. I'm not on stuff that gets artifacts. I Solve the Equation. The reason why I'm not on it is it's a sorcery. It has a blue pip, and it costs. It's a 3 cost. Technically, in this deck, you could cast it for 2, and it's close, but it's not good enough. And that's the thing, is like getting this deck down to 100 cards was so difficult because there's so much gas in blue-red for spell slinging, totally broken bullshit. There's just so much of it. Over the course of Magic's history, we just keep getting more and more broken cards. Plus, we have all these old cards like Recall and stuff like that people forget about that are also super broken. And then you add a breach into the mix. Then you add, you know, new fun hotness into the mix. And at a certain point, you're just like, dude, I got to make 30 cuts, 50 cuts out of this deck. I want to take this deck from 150 cards down to 100, and it's honestly tough. So yeah, I mean, you have to just make cuts at a certain point. The other thing I'm not on is like War of Invention, Transmute Artifact, Reshape sort of effects, because who gives a shit about artifacts? We're just here to cast spells and go burr. I'm not even on. If you look at my artifact suite, it is just all fast mana. That's it. Like, we're not doing much else besides just like, you know, do the thing, like, you know, Mox Opal, LED, Jeweled Lotus, Lotus Petal, like, you know, Mana Crypt. I'm not even on Mana Vault because you don't need them. Like,
colorless, you don't need to play
well with that. Yeah, the only odd man out, if you want to think about it like that, I guess, is Ruby Medallion. But Ruby Medallion is a slot I'm testing more of because it can it can allow you to go off in ways other people didn't see coming. Like it just, and because so much of the deck is red already, it's kind of doing that Aspiring Spike Ruby Storm impression out of Modern, more so in this deck, because that deck also plays Ruby Medallion, because that just got added to Modern with MH3.
Gotcha.
So yeah, finding artifacts doesn't matter, and then the last tutors that don't really matter are the ones on a body, because anything that's on a permanent are just so much worse. Spellseeker, for example, all the mages, like the Trinket Mage and Tribute Mage, and ThunderConductor Mage, anything you put a T in front of it, just turn into a mage. All those, the mages and the Spellseeker lines, none of that matters in this deck either, because first of all, they don't get reduced by RAL. Second of all, you can't cast them off a flipped RAL, so then they're really dead. And all my cards that say cast an instant or sorcery out of your graveyard, you can't recast those tutors. And that's what I want to be doing, is I want to like tutor for the thing, like a bonus round, and then recast that out of my yard with the recursion effects later to win. When I say later, I'm talking about moments later on the same turn, because as a reminder, turn 2 is a privilege, as Zane has taught all of us very well. Right. It's just, it's the way that the kind of the shape of the meta is, those are too slow. It's crazy. The Spellseeker is too slow.
No, I definitely hear you there. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, brother. Well, shit, you touched tutors very well. We know, like, I was wondering when I first saw the list, like, man, the tutor package is really small. But now this makes sense. The tutor package is small because we're looking to reuse the tutors with all the recursion. So then
we also have a shit ton of card draw too.
Right.
To be fair.
And that was actually my next question. We probably have a lot of card draw to help fill the gap of where tutors may not be there. So talk to me about card draw, brother.
Yeah, so the biggest one, and the one that matters more than anything else, is RAL. I know that sounds weird again, that I keep coming back to the commander, but the ult on RAL is a free Mind's Desire for instants and sorceries for 8 in your command zone. So that, it may as well say draw 3 to 4 cards, play them for free. Because you're going to flip 8, and let's say you get unlucky, and about half or more are permanents and you can't cast them. That ult just says, draw 3 cards, you can cast those cards for free this turn, or exile the top 3 cards you have, you can cast them. And so because of that, like that advantage, that inherent card advantage, spinning your wheels gets better. So just making a bunch of mana and putting a bunch of copy effects into play, like more bonus round effects, more recursion effects, just boom, 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 keep spinning. Like sometimes, you know what I do? I hold up a lava dart on somebody's end step, and then I lava dart them, go to my turn, because now it sits in my graveyard, and it's like a fake free spell that's just hiding in my graveyard for 0 mana. You just sacrifice a mountain to cast it. And that's one more. Instead of Storm, you want to think about it as RAL Storm. Storm that only cares about instants and sorceries. So it's like almost like Magecraft. I mean, not right. It's specifically instant and sorcery Storm. So, anyways, yeah, that's the biggest card advantage. Then if you go into the tag section that's called our cantrip / card advantage. This section is just basically chock full of them. I'm not sure why yours looks different. Yours is in alphabetical order. So you have, there's some in the mana base like Fiery Islet. You've got, a card like Born Upon the Wind, which just gets way better in this deck. It's literally 1 blue mana, draw a card, and all your stuff has flash. Like, that's nuts. Faithless Looting, in a lot of ways, you want to think about as card advantage, actually, especially with flashback, is because you're playing so much out of your graveyard that just filling your yard is really good. Got you. Embrace the Unknown right next to Faithless Looting is so bonkers. This card is sick as hell. This was actually the deck image for my deck, because it's got like cactus in it, and there's like a huge monsoon coming and stuff. It reminds me exactly of Tucson, which is where I live, and what is the theme of this deck, and just kind of cool how it all comes together. This card is just, as a reminder, 2 mana, not 3, because of RAL. So 2 mana, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. So this turn and next turn. But it has retrace. So when you fill your hand with the worst cards in Magic's history, aka lands, as you know, we have a deep and passionate hatred towards lands over here in the Holded Prio universe. There's 2 things I love doing: 1, holding Prio, and 2, shitting on green, the color green, and lands. And so retrace is great. You get to dump all those pesky lands out of your hand to recast this card out of your graveyard, and you can do it a few times, especially if you like have other cards that are drawing you cards, whatever. So it's really powerful. In addition to that, you've also got like all the normal stuff, like the Gitaxian Probe and those kinds of things, but you have a lot of these impulse draws. That's what that card is. Embrace the Unknown is an impulse draw. And the reason why we call them that is because of cards kind of like a Reckless Impulse, or
Yes.
Rob the Archives, or Ren's Resolve. All these cards that are essentially just a red and some amount of generic mana. Look at the top X cards of your library. You can cast them until end of turn, or cast them until the end of your next turn.
Exactly.
And the reason why I love these cards so much, and why I'm on them, is because, one, it's a red only effect usually, which means I get to keep my mana base and all of my rituals much more red focused. I don't have to worry so much about converting red into blue to then draw cards with blue cantrips. I love me some cantrips. I love me some Brainstorm, some Ponder, some Preordain, and those seemingly would be good in a deck like this, but it forces you too much into the blue colors. And when we get to the mana base, you'll see that, like, you know, first of all, I'm on 22 lands because I'm a psycho. And second of all,
I was gonna. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, but the second of all, most of them, all I care about is them making red, and then all of my rituals make red, right?
Right.
So you got to be red leaning, which means you got to be on the impulse draw effects. And if you're on that sort of effect, the cool part about that is it also means that you can, like, store them until your next turn. For a lot of them, not all of them. A lot of them say, like, until your next end step, or
Right.
your next turn's end step, or some weird kind of phrase.
Right.
Technically, Lorien Revealed is a card draw. That
I love
is
this
4
inclusion.
mana draw too.
I love this inclusion. I thought that was so cool. I'm not gonna lie. I love this inclusion.
And it's super sick to hit off of a Mind's Desire, or an overloaded Mizzix Mastery, or an Alt RAL.
Yes.
That thing just says 0 mana draw 3. Like, it's so cracked. But also, it just also represents a land in my deck, because you can go get one of the 2 islands, the Volcanic Island or the Steam Bend. And so it's almost like I'm playing 22.5 lands. So
I'll give you the 23. I'll give you the 23. I'll give it to you, bro. I'll give it to you.
Listen, don't give Lorien Revealed that much credit. You still have to have 1 mana to start it going.
True.
That's
That's
true.
true.
Simian Spirit Guide Island Cycle for Lorien Revealed, but that feels pretty bad on turn 1.
Right.
Not something I'm beyond doing. I would do that. But yeah, then you have cards like Desperate Ravings. This is a really cool one. So this card is super spicy include. It is red and generic for an instant. So in this deck, it only costs you 1 mana, 1 red. Draw 2, discard a card at random. So This is just amazing. Then it also has Flashback for 2 and a blue. So you can cast it for 2 mana, because it gets discounted by RAL, to do it again. And cards like this are super powerful. Anytime you can cast 1 card 2 times is great, because, as a reminder, all we're trying to do is to get to the number 6. If Godo tries to count to 11 or 15 or whoever, who cares? Not a lot of people playing Godo anymore. But whatever number Godo is trying to count to,
11,
that's kind of what this deck is trying to do, except for it's 6. You're only trying to get to 6. Just cast 6 instants or sorceries, win the game. That's the hope, right? And that's why, again, Lava Dart's good. That's why cards like this are good, that have flashback costs. That's why Faithless Looting is good. And then also Demand Answers is another really powerful one that's pretty spicy. Red and a generic for an instant. As an additional, so in this deck it only costs 1. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or discard a card, draw 2. Usually here I'm trying to sacrifice an artifact. So, like, I'll tap my mana crypt for the turn that I'm trying to go off, and then I'm all in. I'm all gas, no break. So who cares? I'm never going to see a mana crypt. It doesn't matter. There's not another turn coming, so I'm just going to go off. Right. And this is now just 1 red mana, draw 2. So that's, like, basically the best way in Magic's history. I mean, I guess if you drew 1 more, it would be Ancestral
Recall.
Yeah, so it's really good. And then a new card that came out recently in MH3 that I really like is Glimpse the Impossible. So it's seeing a bunch of play in Pauper. There's a Ruby Storm deck in Pauper, and you better believe I have that fully built and sleeved up. Glimpse the Impossible is 2 generic and a red. Exile the top 3 cards of your library, which is crazy. And you may play those cards this turn. So you have to play them this turn. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you don't play any of them, then they go to your graveyard, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they go to your graveyard, and you make 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens that you can sack for more mana. So what's crazy is sometimes you can just win in your own end step with so this trigger goes on the stack, they come into play, and before you press priority again, you can use this mana to go off. Like if you had a red mana up, like a Lotus Petal or whatever, and these, you could, it's still technically your turn, so RAL can still technically flip. So you could like pop off, make a bunch of mana, do the thing, flip RAL, and then with the extra red mana that you've converted using like a Desperate Ritual or whatever, you can then Final Fortune and then take your turn again and then win the game because RAL just flipped, you know? It's a fringe case, but it's one of the better ones because it basically, if you fizzle, like if you flip off of this and you just hit a bunch of lands or something, which is hard to do when you're only playing 22, but if you hit a bunch of lands, you then just make 3 spawn so that when you go to your next turn, it's really, really good.
Yeah.
We talked about Jessica's Will, absolutely broken. Gives you 3 cards. That's why it's in here. Seize the Spotlight is a super fun one. I love this tech. A lot of people are telling me I'm crazy for playing it. That's fine. I disagree. We got to find ways to, get rid of spicy things that are on the board. As for Sentinels, Advantage Magistrates, like those sorts of cards. And Seize the Spotlight does a lot, all for very little. So it's in this deck, it's 1 generic and a red, but it's 2 generic and a red. Each opponent chooses Fame or Fortune, and then for each player who chooses Fame, gain control of a creature that player controls until end of turn. Super important to note, you don't tell them what creature you're going to gain control of until after they've made their choice. And also super important to note, it does not target. You just make a choice, and now you gain control of that creature. That's it. You untap those creatures, and they gain haste. So I've actually done some really broken things with this, where I've like stolen other people's Draneth to still lock the table down from casting stuff out of exile. But now I own the Draneth, and then I get to continue to go off. And the best part is if they know that I need that to win, they just say, no, I'm going to choose Fortune. And then it says, for each player who chooses Fortune instead, you draw a card and create a treasure token, which is the 2 things this deck wants to do, which is make mana and draw cards. So this
draw a lightning bolt, you have the mana to cast it, you kill the dread. Never mind. But I know that's.
Or sometimes you just go over the top.
Right.
Literally just keep going. Like you just like keep storming off and just keep going. Like, and the thing is there is a fail state for this card. On a board that is an all Spellslinger style deck where no one has a single creature in play, this is an actual dead card. Each opponent just chooses Fame, nothing happens. Because there's no creatures to steal, right? That is so uncommon that even at its floor, this is 2 mana, threaten, like steal a creature and then untap it, right? Like that's not terrible.
2 mana, if you need the RAL Storm count as well.
Exactly, that's the big thing is none of my dead cards are truly dead, right? But on its ceiling, it's 2 mana, draw 3, make 3 treasures. This is essentially Jessica's Will, or some combination of that plus Mr. Steal Your Girl on a couple of the best creatures in play. So it's really spicy. And then obviously, Wheel of Fortune Windfall. We don't want to be on Time Twister effects because we don't want to shuffle our yard.
Yes.
Fill the yard. And then the last really big one to point out is Lock and Load. Lock and Load just literally mows down the board. This is 1 generic and a blue in this deck, because normally it's 2 generic and a blue. Draw a card, then draw a card for each other instant sorcery spell you cast this turn. There is nothing sweeter than flipping one of these off of an alt from RAL or a Mind's Desire. It's so sick. You just like draw 15 cards or draw 10 cards. It's 2 mana. Like it's really, really dope. It has plot, but I don't have enough time to read that. So.
No, it's all good. Yeah. Very quickly, if you all are not familiar, is a new mechanic. Plot 3 in the blue. You may pay 3 in the blue and exile this card from your hand. Cast it as a sorcery on a later turn without paying the mana cost. Plot only as a sorcery. So basically, we'll never be seeing that in this deck because we're storming off. There is no extra turn there. I mean, Final Fortune, sure, but there is no next turn. We're winning right here, or we're gonna win our Final Fortune turn, or we're gonna win. That's it. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. If it was like plot for 1 or plot for like a single blue or something like that, maybe you would turn 1 plot this.
Right.
But that's it. Right. And on another pretty important notable one is Geist Wave. This is a new include, and it's so fantastic. It's a generic and a blue for an instant, so just a single blue in this deck. And it's an unsummoned sort of effect. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If you controlled that permanent, draw a card. So this is just in this deck insane. This is basically, I can target my own stuff to cantrip and to continue the storm count for RAL, or I could just get rid of your Draneth. And it's just a single blue. So it's in contention for something like Chain of Vapor slot in this deck. I'm also on Chain of Vapor, but this is really, really powerful.
100%. Well, shit. We're about to get into removal and interaction, but before we do, I have a quick question. I may have missed it, but how do you feel about that MDFC, that's 7 mana? It is escaping my mind at this time. It's the untapped land for 3 life. It's a mono blue land. And I know we're more red pit heavy, but it's the MDFC. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm on it. I think I just don't have it tagged in this.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
Okay.
Seagate Restoration.
Seagate Restoration. That's what I'm thinking about. All right, there we go. Thank you. I was just wondering about that.
I have it tagged. I have it tagged as a payoff rather than a card draw or card advantage, because if you're ever casting something for 6 in this, or in this deck it's 6, so it's 3 generic and blue.
7.
First of all, if you have somehow, well, with
RAL. Yep. You got it. Yep,
so if you're ever casting it for 6, first of all, you have to have 3 blue, which means you had to have already been doing a lot right. You had to make a bunch of treasures, you have to have a bunch of mana rocks or whatever, and then you cast this card. Like, this is a payoff. Like, this is, if this resolves, like, it's kind of like how lock and load is, except for you can just value cast lock and load early in the game and like draw 2 or whatever. You can't value cast this. This is your big thing that you're trying to do. And obviously it's insane in a deck that's playing Mind's Desire and ulting RAL, because this is just hiding in my mana base, that then all of a sudden you flip it off of a RAL ult or a Mind's Desire and win the game. So you know, it's bonkers. But yeah, I am on it.
Okay, 100%. Okay, we on the same page. Cool. All right, well, you kind of start talking about it with Geistwave, but let's talk about removal and interaction. Like, I love your tutor and your card draw package. I feel like the entire community at this point is convinced that you can get towards a win, but in those situations that you got to remove a Dranith, or maybe just, I'm not going to say stop somebody else, but kind of just bounce something before you go into your turn. Like, what's our removal and interaction package to looking like?
Sure. So I got it tagged under board interaction. Okay. So some of it hides in my mana base. So I've got Otawara, Soaring City. That's a great example of a just super busted card that, you know, obviously in this deck it normally is going to cost 3. Maybe if someone locked me out from, or they killed my RAL and then they slam a Dranith, sure, it costs 4 then.
Yes.
But this is just, you know, super powerful card. And because I have a lot of rituals, like if I gotta just like end step Hail Mary desperate ritual into Otawara, someone's Dranith, then go to my turn and go off. Like, you can do that with that card. Pretty powerful. You can do it through a silence and you know, all the amazing things that we know about Otawara.
100%.
Obviously, the other land that hides it here is Shatter Skull Smashing. So this is red in the next, and this is super important. This is the reason why this card is in this deck, and why I was almost going to cut it, but then I realized how this interaction works. You can cast this where X is 0. And it doesn't do anything, but it flips RAL, or it continues to add to Storm, which really does matter because you want to like turbo up your Storm count.
Yes.
So this is Shadow Skull Smashing deals X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creatures and/or planeswalkers. If X is 6 or more, it deals twice X damage divided as you choose among them instead.
Right.
So yeah, this is just, you know, more removal, but it's also an MDFC that on the other side you can pay 3 life and have it be an untapped land that taps for red. Yes. And we don't care about life total in this deck because no one's ever killing us with combat damage. And if they are, that was a game I was losing anyways. Right,
100%. Yeah.
So beyond that, we've got some really powerful cards like Geistwave, like cards that remove something but also give you upside. So Geistwave is an example that we already talked about.
Yes.
Chain of Vapor is an example of that we already talked about. And in our last deck we went into a lot of detail. I won't go super nuts into it here, but basically I almost always use Chain of Vapor on my own stuff. So if I have a couple mana rocks out, I tap those for mana, then I Chain of Vapor and I copy sack all my lands. Chain of Vapor will just stuff back to my hand and go off. Yes. And one of the sickest things I've found to do is sometimes you're not lucky, and on your 6th instant or sorcery, you coin flip and you hit a heads. So that means it does 1 damage to you and nothing happens. You don't flip your RAL. Now the problem with this is that who cares? You're going to cast more into the sorcery, so you're going to flip it eventually. The big problem though is getting RAL to kill itself when it ults is actually super important in this deck, as we talked about, kind of like the Teferi thing where Chain Veil, where you get to like keep recasting it. You have to figure out a way to get it to die though. And so a lot of times you'll see me grave shotting my own RAL with some of the grave shot triggers, like doing the math ahead of time and making sure that my own RAL dies when I then go to ult him. I lava dart my own RAL a lot, or I'll bolt my RAL, I'll pyroblast my RAL because technically it's blue, or I'll Chain of Vapor my RAL. And this is all like, with the damage ones you can line it up correctly, but with the ones that bounce or kill it, like Pyroblast or Chain of Vapor or Geistwave, you need to do it in such a way where you ult first, then use those cards. And sometimes you flip these cards off the RAL ult, and you bounce it back to your hand, and then you recast it. Like, it's just super bonkers.
Yeah, all day, every day. Yeah. Got you.
And then Snap is essentially both removal and a ritual. So it's a single blue mana in this deck to make 2 mana always. I mean, not always, but in the games we're playing, I'm turboing out my commander. Like, that's what I'm doing.
Right.
And then you find some prisoners, as we talked about. The first part of that mode of that is just coincidentally happens to destroy an artifact. If this card didn't have that mode, I would still play it. It's Praetor's Grasp in red, like
Exactly.
for 1 red mana, like
Exactly.
in this deck at least.
Yeah.
And it just coincidentally happens to have the fringe benefit of also killing artifacts, which is cool. And it stops me from having to play worse cards like Abrade or something like that.
Right.
Intuition, I technically have in my board interaction suite just because it's so common that I intuition at instant speed to find a way to deal with a threat and also set up my graveyard to win the game. Like the cards that I'll put in my intuition piles are going to be like a lava dart, like if something has 1 toughness, like a lava dart, so that even if they put it into my graveyard, I'm still going to sack a mountain to kill it out of the graveyard.
Right.
And then like a bolt and a grape shot. And so it's like, yeah, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Give me whatever, I don't care, I'm doing it. You know, that's how intuition always goes, but you know,
100%.
really, really powerful here. So I just wanted to highlight it.
100%.
Sees the spotlight, steals creatures like we talked about, conditionally, but the condition is so bad for them that they almost always want to give me the creature rather than giving me a card and a treasure. Like it's just, you know, too broken. 100%. And then another really, really powerful new include that hides in the mana base that you and I have just been, you know, for lack of a better term, on the nuts of this card. Yeah. Sink into Stupor.
Yes!
I mean, this
I love this card.
Rhymes, this thing is straight out of, like, I don't even know. It's so broken. I don't know what they were thinking putting Unsubstantiate on a fucking untapped land.
Bruh, I took Manamo out of all of my lists for Sink into Stupor. I'm just gonna say it right now. Yeah. I said, bro, untapping the 1 ring, fuck that shit. Put Sink into Stupor on my list. This shit is ridiculous, bro. Like dead ass, man.
Yeah. It's like adding Fergie to the Black Eyed Peas, man. All of a sudden you're just chart topping. So
exactly.
That card is really good. That's also a phrase I've literally never said before, and I don't know how it came to me. I think it's just through the power of ADHD. So
hey, you with the flow state, baby. Keep going, bro. You killing it, bro.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, that's it. That's our interaction package. I don't think I'm really missing anything. I tried to look. Oh, this is important also. And you're going to keep hearing me say this because RAL is such a broken card, and you just always end up reading more text the second time you read it. Also, RAL is board interaction.
Okay, all right. Sell me on
-1 or -2 or whatever that says deal 1 or deal 2 damage divided as you choose of up to 2 targets, and they're any targets. And if you have a blue permanent pay, you draw a card. So if you have like a Heuristics or a Mystic or a Polywog or whatever in play, you also draw a card off of it. So you can trip and kill something. And so sometimes what I do is if I flip RAL, but I need to kill the thing before I ult, I will purposefully flip RAL early, down ticket to kill something, then kill my RAL or bounce my RAL, recast it, then cast an instant sorcery, then flip my RAL again, then go off with the Mind's Desire ult sort of effect, you know? It's so versatile. Usually, though, I will say, if you're -2ing the RAL, you're in a pretty rough spot, but it doesn't mean the game's over. Like, sometimes that's just what you need to make it to your next turn to then win, you know?
100%. No, that's very fair. And once again, they put everything in the cat's pajamas on this damn commander. Fuck. It's like whenever you think
before I forget, this is one that I almost forgot about just now, but this actually happened in a game recently.
Talk to me.
Look at the way the wording is on the +1. Until your next turn, instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. So this is a static effect.
Yes.
Which means if you uptick RAL and kill it and recast it, now when the front half is down, it has its passive also. So now your instants and sorceries cost 2 less. There have been situations, it's like kind of like Kinnan math, where like there have been situations where you're popping off and you're like you know, doing your thing and like trying to like find the line or whatever. And sometimes the right line is a weird mana based advantage line where you want to flip your RAL, uptick it early, kill it. Like let's say the first spell, you flip RAL. Now it comes to play with 3 loyalty. You uptick it, it goes to 4. Then you bounce it with like a Chain of Vapor along with some other mana rocks to generate a bunch of mana. Recast it, it comes back into play. Everything costs 1 less. Then you go off with like a Jeska's Will sort of line that's now reduced down to just 1 red mana. And you get to really pop off way harder than you would have. Then everything you exile with Jeska's Will also gets reduced by 2. And that's really good when you're trying to, I don't know, overload a Mizzix Mastery that would normally cost 8. Now all of a sudden it only costs 6. And getting up to 6 mana is not that hard when all your rituals are reduced by 2. Like it just you keep doing the thing, you know. Right. Yeah.
Bro, thank you for the follow. Thank you for the follow, man. That makes 100% sense. And once again,
is that the homie Baphomet?
Hey, bro, quick with the stick, bro. Quick with the stick. Hey, I mean, But once again, they put everything in the cat's pajamas in this commander. I don't know how the cEDH community overlooked this. I'm part of them. I just overlooked this. This commander does everything. But in addition to fixing you with mana, being card advantage, and its removal, man, like before we go to recursion and protection, like are there any other like removal interactive pieces? I'm pretty sure you're probably on Force of Will or any of those other things.
Stack interaction. Yeah, I'm on the good stuff. I mean, I think it's worth maybe checking out just because there's some notable exclusions. If you go to stack interaction, you'll notice that I'm not on certain like kind of notable instants and sorceries, and this is kind of a theme. I mean, we talked about this in my draw deck too, but I have a very particular opinion about what's good and what isn't in the current meta. One thing I'll say about this deck is Pact of Negation is amazing in this deck because nobody's getting another turn anyway, so who gives a shit? Right. An offer you can't refuse is amazing because it's also mana. Because as you know, we like to do one thing and one thing only, and that is hold motherfucking priority. Yes. So you put something on a stack, you hold priority, and one of the sick things is if you have a bonus round lined up, you know it's dope. You go hold priority, you offer you can't refuse your thing, and then you copy, and with the copy of the offer you can't refuse, you offer the original offer, so you never even lose the thing. You just make 2 treasures for 1 blue. But if you have multiple things on the stack, you can go nuts and like go off with ritual. Like basically an offer you refuse starts becoming this like treasure making ritual. It's really powerful.
No, I kid you not. I have won multiple games where either whether it was in the beginning or the middle or the end, like it turned into like, look, I could use this offer to counter your spell, or I could push my own advantage. Like a game I played a couple days ago, I land Chrome Mox hold priority, offer you can't refuse, set up for a turn 2 Heuristics, end up winning about turn 3 or 4 because everyone just fed that shit because someone pushed for a win, unfortunately, and then I was able to just come in and just with 15 cards in hand just do my thing. So I think this is one of the most slept on ramp cards. It's so flexible, so powerful. So I love it.
Yeah, it's great, and it's also great for taking dead cards and doing something good with them. Like if you are like, let's say you had an opener that this card is in, and you have like, I don't know, like a Chrome Mox, a Mox Diamond, and a land. Well, you can still go like land, Chrome Mox, pitch something, and then still do something with the Chrome Mox or with the Mox Diamond. You didn't have another land to pitch to it, but who gives a shit? Now you get to just put it on the stack and respond to it by holding a priority and casting an offer. And what is somebody going to do? Counter that?
Right.
Like, it's a ritual for one. Like, what's so crazy about it is it's a ritual that makes treasures.
Yes.
So it's permanent ritual that then goes into the next turn, and then you get to win on turn 2 because you went up so much mana over the rest of the table.
Exactly. No, 100%.
But yeah, that's a really powerful one.
No, I love that, man. Yeah, keep going, brother. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm on SWAT. I'm on Fierce because we're on a turn 1 commander.
Yeah.
I'm on Flusterstorm because it's one of the best counter spells in the format. Although I don't love having to play it in this deck, but I am on it because it's that good. Mental Misstep I'm on because it's free, and again I can respond to my own stuff with Mental Misstep just to get me to instant and sorcery Storm 6 to then flip. Yeah, we'll call it RAL Storm. I like that. Pyroblast, as we talked about before, it's a really great way to. Okay, this is actually super important to know.
Oh my gosh, please enlighten the people. I love this card. Continue.
Yeah. I'm not on Red Elemental Blast, but I am on Pyroblast. And so this is important to know because most people have it twisted in their head and they have this heuristic of like, you should always play Red Elemental Blast and not Pyroblast because you don't want to get your Pyroblast swatted. It's like, well, that's true, but the same reason that is true is the reason why I want to be on Pyroblast. And it's because in this deck, you can cast Pyroblast with no traditionally legal targets. Exactly. All you have to do is target literally any permanent or any spell, and it's fine. It just doesn't do anything. Exactly. It'll say destroy target permanent. Cool, I've got a legal target if it's blue.
Exactly.
So I just don't destroy it.
Yes.
Counter target spell. So great, any spell is a legal target, and then it checks if it's blue. And let's say it was a black spell. Okay, fine. Whatever. I don't have a legal target anymore, but I still got to hit storm count. Exactly. What's great about this is it's kind of the way that like legacy or modern prowess works, or even pauper prowess works, where you have a creature that just cares about prowess count. That's kind of the same thing here. It's like we just care about instant sorcery, storm, RAL storm count. So yeah, this card's really good, but it's also really good because I can get to just kill my own RAL with it. So I flip RAL, and let's say it was my 7th or 8th card per turn. I ult RAL, and now he still has 2 loyalty left. I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do with this stupid planeswalker that doesn't do anything anymore because I already activated it once per turn? Cool, one of the cards I hit was a Pyroblast. Awesome, I'm just going to kill my own RAL. It's going to go to the command zone. I'm going to recast it. Just bonkers. Card just goes hard in the paint. In addition, We're on Sync into Super like we talked about because it interacts on the stack. Force of Will is just good, obviously. Intuition, again, a great interactive card, just like for the board interaction. You can just go find any counterspell you want because you just find 3 of them. And then these are the 2 that I think are really important to touch on. Reiterate and Return the Favor. So let's start with Reiterate. Reiterate is red generic with buyback of 3. Buyback is part of the actual cost of the spell, which means that if you have lots of cost reducer effects stacked up, for example, you upticked a RAL and killed it, then recast it, and now you have the passive side of RAL like we were talking about doing before. So all your spells cost 2 less. All your instants and sorceries, I should say, cost 2 less. And let's say you also have like a Ruby Storm in play. In order for you to cast Reiterate with buyback, it now only costs you red, and a generic to cast it with buyback, which means any rich, like a Jessica's Will, for example, or a Stealing Song effect, you can just over and over and over cast it and copy it, reiterating it back to your hand. So the original stays on the stack, and the Reiterate just keeps copying it, making more mana, coming back to your hand, copying it, making more mana, coming back to your hand. So you make it infinite red mana and infinite storm, or RAL Storm and regular storm, I guess. So that's just like a broken card. But on its floor, because remember, we gotta always think about what's the worst case scenario. You don't always have, multiple cost reducers, blah, blah, blah. Sure, you're right. On its floor, it is red, counterspell.
Yes.
Like, for the most part, right? It's also red, copy one of my card advantage things or my Jessica's Will or whatever. Just regular copy it. That's good, right?
Right.
But it's also really good when you copy a bonus round that's already on the stack. Because, like, you can do weird timing shenanigans, like with cards like Finale of Promise, I think is in this deck. It's red, fucking X, and the wording is weird, but basically you get to pick an instant, you get to pick a sorcery in your graveyard, as long as their mana cost is X or less, and you get to cast those cards without paying their mana cost, and they get exiled. But the ordering of those cards matters. So if one of those cards is bonus round, and the other one is like a ritual, you put the ritual on the stack, you reiterate it, and then, or you put the bonus round on the stack first, you reiterate it, then the ritual gets cast. Then the ritual that gets cast now has double bonus rounds stacked up on it. So now it's a triple ritual rather than just a single. And you still have the bonus round effect that's doubled up for the rest of the turn. So anyways, if you're willing to pause when looking at any board state, if you see Reiterate, if you're willing to pause and really think through your lines, Reiterate can really benefit a player who's willing to slow down and think about, how can I break this better, basically. And then the other important note here is Return the Favor might truly be one of my favorite cards of recent times. It's so fun and it's so good. So here are some really weird, funky things about this card. First of all, it's red, Return the Favor instant, and it's spree, which means you choose one or more additional costs. It doesn't say you may, you must choose one or more additional costs. That's an important thing to remember. One generic, copy target instant spell, sorcery spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. The next spree mode is one generic, change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. So essentially, you could use this as a counter spell, especially with RAL that's out. It only costs red, because it's reduced by 1. So this is the red, basically SWAT, right? Or it's red, copy target instant, sorcery, activated ability, or triggered ability. So here's where things get fucking weird.
Okay.
If you ever cast this card off of a Mind's Desire or a thing that says cast it without paying its mana cost, like those sorts of effects, normally effects that have an X in the mana cost, X is always 0. But this doesn't work that way. X isn't in the mana cost. This is red with spree, and you must choose one mode. You can't put it on the stack without choosing a mode, and therefore you can't cast it for red with no modes. You have to pick a mode.
Right.
And so you get the full advantage of this card always, no matter what, even if you flip it off a Mind's Desire. So it's important to note that, because some people get super confused when you're playing and they're like, wait, you can't pick a mode because it's an additional cost. No, it's part of the cost, right?
Right.
You can't pick more than one mode, though, off of Mind's Desire. It's a minimum and a maximum. It's really strange.
Yes, choose one. You have to choose one, yes.
And the or more, you can only choose more additional costs if you're just casting it normally, like out of your hand or whatever.
Right.
Okay. So now here's the crazy part about this card. You know what are really good triggered abilities to copy? Fucking Storm.
Oh.
So you put a Mind's Desire on the stack, there's the Storm trigger. Then you cast for red, copy the Storm trigger. And then let's as a hypothetical example.
Yeah.
You've cast 3 spells for a turn. You put a Mind's Desire on the stack, that's your 4th spell. Storm trigger. Return the favor, copying the Storm trigger. If it resolves, that's your 5th spell. If it resolves, Storm is 5. You put 5 copies on the stack. Then the original Storm trigger resolves, and you put 5 copies on the stack. So it doubles +1 whatever your Storm is, which is so bonkers. I've killed somebody with a Grape Shot Storm trigger, where I only had enough Grape Shot to like mostly kill the table, and then I was like, oh wait, I can just copy the trigger and then everybody dies. It's fucking sweet. The other crazy thing, as you were alluding to, is you can copy the ult off RAL. So you get double ults off RAL, which is super, super sick.
Yes.
And another really crazy thing you can do, which I just did recently in that tournament, is someone went to fetch, and in response to their cracking of a fetch, I mean, it has to be a blue or a red fetch, but in response to them cracking a fetch, I just cast Return the Favor, and I got to go up mana in my deck. Yeah, it's pretty nuts. And as Brandon in the chat, Sky Turtle says, the first time that this man held priority with a Storm trigger on the stack in front of me blew my mind. Yeah, it's not intuitive. It's just like with Flusterstorm, you just think, oh, there's all these copies. Like, no, the copies don't happen until the trigger resolves. So what's crazy is you can copy somebody else's Storm trigger. Like if somebody else is trying to go off with like Flusterstorm or Brain Freeze and you don't have that, but you have Return the Favor, Return the Favor is actually good enough to beat that, because Return the Favor copies their Storm triggers on Flusterstorm, meaning you get all the Flusterstorm copies too, which will then blow out their attempt or whatever, which is super sick. This card does, every time you read it, it does something new.
Yeah, no, this is a card now. I don't run in my reunion list right now, but you're making me think about running it in my reunion list, especially for that control effect where you get to backfire somebody's Flusterstorm by copying the Storm trigger. That's fucking crazy. Oh, that's fucking hot, bro. I'm not even gonna cap you. That's hot, bro. God damn. Okay, well, this is an amazing interaction, both on the stack and permanent removal. Like, is there anything else you want to touch on for removal and interaction, brother?
Hell no. You gotta shut me up, man.
All right, please, bro. I love everything you saying. I ain't shutting you the fuck up. What the hell? Shit. Let's go to stacks then. I think the answer is gonna be the number of stacks pieces is gonna be 0. Correct me if I'm wrong though.
Yeah, the answer is 0. There's one consideration. So in the sideboard, I have a defense grid.
Okay.
There's like 1 or 2 other people who are trying to play this list right now. And one of them actually was just on cEDH TV recently. That's Samurai Dancer. Yeah. Actually linked to his, he won. I linked to his, I think it was a turn 3 win or turn 2 win.
Oh, it was fucking
He won. Yeah, it was so hot. But
if y'all have not seen this, I'm sorry for cutting you off, brother, but if y'all have not seen this gameplay, it is phenomenal. Please go to his primer, check this video out after, of course, this stream, but please check this out. This is an amazing gameplay. Go ahead, though, bro.
Yeah, and there's a link to their list as well. They play different cards than I do. They're on the One Ring and things like that. So it's like slightly different kind of variant. But anyways, there aren't a lot of people who are on this list, but of the ones that are, like Samurai Dancer, he's been trying out Defense Grid and Vexing Bauble. And Vexing Bauble is really interesting because, so let's start with Defense Grid. Defense Grid is great when it does its thing, obviously, right? It's 2 generic mana. Players have to pay 3 more mana when it's not their turn to cast spells. So this is a way for red or blue to have like a Grand Abolisher at home sort of effect or whatever, except when you pass the turn, you 100% give the game away to the next person.
100%.
Or at least maybe not that person, but the next one. Like you're never getting another turn, essentially, if you have to resolve this and then someone silences you or something like that. So I just don't play it, mainly because it's not an instant or sorcery. Like I just kind of listen, if my rules are already working and everything else in the deck is flowing and the juices are flowing, or we got this nice, amazing sandwich that we're building of this cEDH deck. If you can't tell, I'm super hungry. The rules that kind of make the cohesion, everything kind of slide together, the sandwich lube, if you will, is this concept that you're supposed to be playing instants and sorceries before everything else. Yeah. Those instants and sorceries themselves really do need to be cards that make mana, have card advantage, or win the game. And this doesn't do any of that. And
that's fair.
As we talked about before, I'm not always really that worried about resolving my spells. Cool, counter all my shit. I'm still gonna flip RAL. There's no fucking way you're on Stifle, and if you are, you're bad. So who cares? Like, it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, to be fair, I'm sure there's somebody out there that has a good reason to be playing Stifle, like a numerous deck.
I love trick bind in my control list. Hold on, I do love me a good trick bind in my control list. Now hold on. I'm saying, go ahead.
But also, hold on. Let's just give it. Let's just be real about this though. Control is in a very bad place right now. It's in a very difficult place to do well with these crazy turbo decks. I'm not saying that those lists play. They're just, positioned in the meta it's like the same reason why this deck is positioned well in the meta.
Yep.
So I'm not expecting to see trick bind. I'm not expecting to see Stifle, and I'm not expecting to see like Titana's Tidebinder and stuff like that. Right. But I suppose you could be. But outside of those kinds of,
but they gotta have them like. Yeah, my apology for cutting you off, but like they gotta have the mana to cast it. And I'm sorry, like who is gonna? If you literally kept a land crypt to hold up the shot of Tidebinder on turn 1, I don't know if you're playing to win. Most people who have land crypt, they're trying to set up an advantage engine to get into their turn 2, turn 3, hold up the advantage engine. But if they never get to that untapping with that mana, they'll never be able to cast those Stifle effects, which kind of makes Stifle the premium. But one of the weaknesses to Stifle is one of the, like it being an instant speed 1 mana spell, it gets hit by every counter spell. So that's personally why I don't run the Stifle, the traditional Stifle effect in my list, because it's just
trick bind's a different story. You can't respond to it, and so you get to do a lot of broken things. Like you get to somebody who thinks that they're going to go off and do the thing, you get to trick bind the Thoracle or whatever. You can trick bind. I'm pretty sure you can trick bind your own dying to Final Fortune effect on your end step.
Yes.
So like there's definitely some proactive ways to play it too. And like I'm not saying that like there's no reason to play it, but I just think in the current meta they are so underrepresented that I'm just not even worrying about it. So anyways, I can just cast all my stuff. Cool, counter it. Who gives a shit? I flip my RAL, then we keep going.
Yep.
So defense grid doesn't feel 100% right in this moment. And again, I'm one person with very little total reps. So all I can talk about is in the games I played, there was never a situation where I was like, oh, I really wish I had a defense grid in my deck. Like, no, that never comes up. Like, I don't have ways to get that card. It's literally just gamble. Nothing else can get that card in my deck. I mean, I guess I could intuition, but then I can't even recur it because all my recursion is, for instance, the sorcery. So as you see, it's like artifacts are bad in my deck. I mean, I've just played the ones that are broken, all the mana ones, and that's it. And then when you look at Vexing Bauble, that's a different story. So that card, first of all, costs 1 less, which is a huge deal when you're trying to go off super early. But it also cantrips itself when, so it does. You don't give wins away as easily. But it also does this really weird thing where it doesn't say you can't cast a spell. It just says the spell gets countered if no mana was spent to cast it. So this means that the spell still went on the stack, which means RAL still triggers. So there's a world where Vexing Bauble is actually the right thing to be playing. Also, every copy gets around this. Copies are never actually cast unless the card explicitly says copy something and cast it. So Storm copies, for example, get around this the same way they get around Chalice of the Void and things like that.
100%.
So you can kind of play through it in a lot of ways. So, but the problem with this is like I can never really think of a great situation where this is the card I want to see in my opening hand or even on my turn 2. It's like I guess I could go like turn 1 mana advantage piece like a Mystic, Lotus Petal, Vexing Bauble. Like that's pretty good, but I better draw into a bunch of gas, and then even then it stops me from like if I draw into maybe some mana rocks and stuff, I can't really cast those. I'd have to crack it first. Like it's definitely interesting, and I think I don't want to count either of these cards 100% out, Defense Grid or Vexing Bauble, but this is not a Stax deck, and this isn't even a mid-range deck. This isn't even a kind of mid-range deck. This is turbo. So
and this is, of course, we're not throwing shade on Vexing Bauble, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. When I'm looking at this card and from everything I've heard you say about this deck, I can hear an argument for playing it for protecting your your turn having some protection up. But all I keep hearing you and everybody else say who plays this deck is like, counter my spell. I don't give a fuck. And if that's what you're saying, do you need a defense grid? Do you need a silence? Do you need a vexing bauble? Is the question that I have, because I love silence effects, because when I'm storming off, and whether with my Satya list, my Jeskai Satya list, I care if certain spells get countered. If you don't care if certain spells get countered, I don't even think this is a box you really need to open. And if that's the case, if you don't need it for protection, you're running it to stop your opponents. And if in a turbo list, you're almost going against the nature of what the archetype of the deck you're trying to create is by running Vexing Bauble to stop your opponents. It kind of like clashes with the intent of what the deck is trying to do. So yeah, I definitely can hear some arguments towards running it. I do think it's generically a good card, but I can at the same time, like, if you don't care if your spells resolve or not, this may not be the card for you. You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm just, based off what I'm hearing you say, brother, I'm just being honest. I don't know if I don't think you need it from what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta see them in play, of course, but yeah, I don't know if this is the one, man.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with Stax pieces in the deck. Those are the only ones that really make sense.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not on them in my current iteration, but like those are the only ones that I would say, like, if you were on them, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's fine.
I got you. Okay, well then forget Stax, man. We've been talking about it, talking about it here and there, but let's hit on recursion, man. Like board protection, spell protection, and big one is just recursion. So talk to me, brother.
Yeah, the recursion suite is the kind of the glue that really makes the deck be able to go so fast and lean so hard in and be like kind of all gas, because you have all of these fail safes. You know?
Can I ask about one specifically starting off? That was very
sure, please. Yeah.
Festival of Embers, the Rionia community. We're talking about it. We decided maybe it wasn't the best for Rionia, but I think this is a powerful card. I just didn't know what specific deck may need it, and I saw it in yours. So talk to me, like, how this feels in this deck, man.
And I'll start by saying, if you ever need proof as to why this card is really good in a deck like this, now granted, you can make the argument you could cut it just based off of its mana cost being high and it being an enchantment,
right?
Like a permanent, basically, instead of an instant sorcery. So for those reasons, I wouldn't fault someone for not wanting to play it. But for the actual card text itself, I would say you probably haven't thought through enough of why this card is so good. And if you ever need proof as to why it's so good, you should really check out that Samurai Dancer cEDH TV video at some point, because he ends up actually using this as a way to win. But essentially, the reason why this is so powerful is this card says a bunch of things that I think people maybe misread the first time. So one of the big ones is that, first of all, this is a 5-mana enchantment, so it's 4 and a red. During your turn, you may cast instant sorcery spells from your graveyard by paying 1 life in addition to their other costs. Mm-hmm. If a card or token would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So this is a replacement effect, and it works very similar to the way that Necrodominance was recently worded. So this is not a trigger, it just fucking happens. You cannot respond to it.
Yes.
And then for a generic and a red, there is an ability that says Sacrifice Festival of Embers. And as weird as this is, the sacrifice isn't a cost, it's an effect, which means technically you could put this ability on the stack and then respond to it a million times. Like, you could use it over and over again. It would do nothing. But I always want to just point little weird things out like that in case there's ever a strange situation in the future where, like, having, like, let's say there's like a thing in the future that comes out that says trigger storm, like storm for the number of activated abilities that you've activated this turn, or something like that. Anytime you activate an ability, do a thing. Like, you could basically use this as an outlet over and over again. But anyways,
no. Very good catch. Go ahead, brother. Yeah.
So here's the part that I think a lot of people miss. First of all, because that is so cheap, you can use it in response to the spell that you put on the stack from your graveyard. So with Festival of Embers, you could put a really powerful spell on the stack. For example, something that you wanted to recur over and over again. Yes. Let's say, I don't know, your fucking Underworld Breach that was already in your graveyard due to an intuition. Then you just put the Underworld, or pardon me, you cannot use it for an Underworld Breach, excuse me, because it has to be in the sorcery. Let's say a Mind's Desire that was in your graveyard. You put a Mind's Desire on the stack, and you have a low count for Mind's Desire. It's only 1 or 2. So you want to be able to recast it again once you get some more mana and keep going. You can respond to it by sacrificing the Festival of Embers. That's like tip of the iceberg. So then the Festival of Embers hits the yard, then the Mind's Desire and all of its triggers go off. Then they go to your real graveyard. They don't go to they don't get replaced and go to exile.
Right.
That's kind of like level 1. The next level up, though, that's important, and this is an important point really quick too, you paid 1 life to do this, plus the cost of the card. It is not life equal to the mana cost of the card, it's just 1 life.
Yes.
So the next level from here is, and this is where things get crazy, is where you can use bounce effects to basically put multiple spells on the stack, especially if you've loaded up a bonus round already for the turn. So for example, let's say you have a bonus round effect in play, and this is in play. You could cast a bounce effect from your yard to bounce the Festival of Embers, copying it and using the other bounce to bounce the Festival of Embers as well. With that on the stack, you can then start casting spells out of your yard and responding to them with your own copies. You get to a point where basically this card is just Breach, but better in some ways, because all your thing that's gating you is life plus a bounce effect, not the
cards in your graveyard.
Cost of cards in your yard. So basically this takes less to go off when you first start. I mean, yeah, it takes more mana, but it takes less cards and fuel to go off.
Right.
So you could, I don't know, put a Grave Shot on the stack, then bounce the Festival of Embers. The Grave Shot resolves, the bounce spell resolves, and when they resolve, the Festival of Embers is not in play, so it doesn't see the replacement effect, so the bounce spell just goes back to your yard. Then you replay the Festival of Embers, you replay the bounce spell, and all of these things sound super mana intensive, and they are, but when something's a payoff engine like this, you're going to be gated by something. Think about Breach. It doesn't cost a lot of mana, but it gates you by having a bunch of fuel in your yard that you then need to exile to keep going. So therefore, you have to card like Brain Freeze or Wheel of Fortune or whatever, and those cards have real costs.
Right.
Like if you wheel, you're giving everybody interaction at the table, so that's like a very real cost to do that. Whereas with Festival of Embers, you don't need to worry about any of that. The only thing that's your quote-unquote cost, or your, the thing that's gating you, is the mana. So this card's really, really powerful. I think there's a lot that needs to be explored with this card. I think there's probably other decks that might want to play it. It's tough to want to play it in black though, because with Ad Nauseam it's a 5 mana hit, which is pretty rough. But I think if Underworld Breach, if they just reprinted Underworld Breach identically and it was 5 mana, I think people would play that card because you'd have 2 copies of Underworld Breach in your Ad Nauseam deck. And if you think about the card that way, it's pretty powerful. It's almost like Yawgmoth's Will, but you have a way to remove the turn your graveyard into exile effect.
Yeah.
And the other really important thing too is this thing doesn't go away. So you could just value play this card and then play some cards out of your graveyard and then that are like permanents, like play some creatures and artifacts, and then pass the turn. And then on your next turn, you get to keep doing it. It doesn't go away. So that's like also a weird thing for this to just be like a static in play card, like that just lives there, you know? It's very, very powerful. And one of the biggest things is it's part of a very broken intuition pile now, where you can always get your Breach effect. So the 3 cards that you put in your pile are Festival of Embers, Breach, and Recall. No matter what they give you, you get the Breach, or you just play the Festival of Embers and that's good enough anyways. Like it doesn't matter, like you can just play the Festival of Embers, then you play the Breach out of the yard, then you sacrifice the Festival of Embers and keep going. Like so it doesn't matter like what they give you.
100%. And I love that, because that's one of the tough things about running intuition in non-white decks, because you lose that Sabines, but getting double effects just gives you the inevitability that Sabines give you in just another way. And I love that for this list. I kid you not, brother. Man, like keep talking recursion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, your point just now was actually probably one of the most important things about why this recursion package works, is that like, why do intuition lines work? Why is Breach so good? It's because of the Jeskai suite of being able to go Breach, Sabines, LED, Brain Freeze. And depending on how you order them and what cards you need, you get to put them in whatever order. But as long as you go Breach, Sabines, and LED off your intuition, if you have nothing to start other than some like fetch lands and fuel in your yard, you can always find the line, right? It's lights out. Well, so when I was looking at this, I was like, first of all, I've got way more LED effects than the average deck does because all my rituals are essentially LED effects, right? Like I get to just like do all the broken ritual stuff, so I can use rituals as LED effects. Sure, I still play LED, but like I don't even need to use that card. Like what happens if it gets exiled to my RAL flip? Who gives a shit? I'll just use Desperate Ritual in its place, or Just As Will in its place, or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Then the other thing to think about is I need Savine's effects. How could I possibly do this? Because I'm running Jeskai without Savine's effects. Well, that's what all these other cards really are, honestly. Festival of Embers is just a Savine's. Finale of Promise, that's just another way to get like a Savine's effect. Recall is just another Savine's. Mizzix's Mastery is just another Savine's. I guess I didn't put, oh no, I did. Pinnacle Monk. This is just a creature that rebuys an instant sorcery. It's essentially a Eternal Witness, but for instants and sorceries, and it's in my fucking mana base, so I get to just play this creature and just rebuy the instant sorcery that I need in my yard that allows me to then go off. Embrace the Unknown we talked about already. That thing just lives in your yard, and you just keep retracing it over and over again when you get to discard all your bad game pieces to, or excuse me, lands to it. And the other cards that are in this recursion package that I guess we didn't talk about that much is Mystical Retrieval. I just can't stress enough how broken this card is. Really important to remember that this card's in your hand and there's a Lion's Eye Diamond in play. You get to do the super busted Echo of Eons thing where you crack the LED, it puts the Mystic Retrieval in your yard, and if you look at the mana cost of it, it's 3 mana. One of them is the color that you get to play.
Oh shit! Yeah.
So Mystic Retrieval just reads as like, if it's in your hand and there's an LED in play, you go off. But if it's also not in your hand and it's in the graveyard, you get to go off. And it costs 1 less, so you always are up a mana too. So like this card, like let's say there's a card in your hand that you need to play to win the game, like a Bolt.
Yeah.
This line is super sick. If you have LED in play or in your hand, and you also have Mystic Retrieval and Bolt, you get to go LED, crack it, putting the Bolt and the Mystic Retrieval into your yard for triple red.
Yes.
And now, because you have RAL, the Mystic Retrieval costs 1 and a red to then cast out of your graveyard, rebuying the Bolt that you just put in your graveyard back into your hand, and you have 1 red mana left over, and then you get to cast the Bolt. So like if the thing that was like holding you down on board was like an opposition agent or whatever, and you had an intuition line that you wanted to go for but you couldn't, you can do a line like this. Like, and some people might be like, well, you wouldn't have the intuition anymore because it was in your hand. Well, no, most of my draw effects in this deck are impulse draw effects. So a lot of times I'm staring face up at a win in my exile zone based off of Ren's Resolve or Mind's Desire, like things like that. But if there is a Stax piece in play that's really fucking me over, I can do weird shit like this that are lines that are like hard to follow initially when you first look at them. So
got you. I fucking love that, bro. Man, keep going. We talking recursion, man. Like we've pretty much touched on all of these cards at this point, but are there any other recursion pieces or anything protection that we haven't got to touch on?
Yeah, the 2 big ones that I just want to touch on before we finish this section is just, there is truly, I think maybe, there might be a couple things that come close, but there are a few things in this world that come as close to true nirvana as casting a Finale of Promise where X equals 10 or more, or overloading a Mizzix's Mastery, which costs 8 mana. And you can do that very easily in this deck. I don't know if you even know what Promise says for the X equals 10. Most people wouldn't, because why the fuck would you ever need to know what the X equals 10 does? Because you're never gonna fucking do that in a normal game of Magic. But this game, in this crazy world we live in, you actually do get to do that. So I'm gonna read this to you. Red X, you may cast up to 1 target instant. This is important that it says up to, because it means that you don't have to target 2 things. Up to 1 target instant card and or up to 1 target sorcery card from your graveyard, each with converted mana cost X or less, without paying their mana costs. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard for this turn, exile it instead. If X is 10 or more, copy each of these spells twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. So the way this actually works, if you do this, first of all, important to note that if RAL's on board, this is always red, 3 spell casts, because it doesn't just copy them, it casts them. So that's, this card alone is halfway there to flipping your RAL in and of itself. So if in your yard is like yeah, if in your yard is like a fucking Rite of Flame and a Bolt, you just go Finale of Promise, where X is technically 1, but it's reduced by RAL by 1, and you get to recast both those cards, making 2 red mana, and it's 3 spell casts, and you get to continue to go off, and you got to bolt your whatever you wanted to bolt, right?
Right.
But here's the wild part. If X is 10 or more, the way this actually works is you copy each of those twice, and then cast them twice. Like not cast them twice, cast each one of those copies. So this means that if X is 10 or more, this is 5 spell casts on 1 fucking Magic card. So
wait, it's not copy, because it says if X is 10 or more, copy each of those spells twice, but it's still casting them?
Yeah, because it's retroactively looking back at the way the rest of that paragraph was worded. And if you go back to the beginning of it, it says, if a card cast this way, or sorry, you may cast each one of those cards from your graveyard without paying their mana cost.
Okay. Shit, I didn't know that. You're teaching me something. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Now, casting it for X is 10 is not like it's going to happen all the time. That's not like common. But it's doable enough in a deck that's all mana, right? Also, the overload on Mizzix
Mastery. Can I throw this in real quick? I gotta throw this in. Yeah. Okay, so we have rule. I did just scroll down to the rulings. It says the copies of Finale of Promise creates the copies that Finale of Promise creates are created on the stack, so they're not cast. Abilities that trigger when players cast a spell won't trigger. So I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you pointed that out. Thank you.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I didn't want to stop your flow, bro.
3 spell. No, please.
I didn't want to stop your flow though.
Casts, not 5.
Yeah.
So you would still get
that's still halfway. That's still halfway, bro. That's still huge.
Yeah. The weird part about that is that's also some upside though too, because it's 3 spell casts. But this means, if it's worded this way, that you cast the 3 spells. One of them's Finale, and the other 2 are out of the yard. And each of those 2 then get copied twice, which means you get 3 of each of the effects, the original plus the 2 copies. So that's more, like, that does more than I thought it did. It just casts less total spells, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the original 2 are actually cast. Those are not copied.
Yes.
Like if X is less than 10.
Yes.
If X is 10 or more, then you also copy them twice. It doesn't say instead of doing the original, it says you copy them twice.
So at that point, if we're talking about that example of Rite of Flame and Lightning Bolt, you've cast Finale, Rite of Flame, and Lightning Bolt, then you get another 6 damage from 2 more Lightning Bolts and another 4 red mana, or depending on what your opponent's having in the graveyard, 4 plus mana from the 2 more Rite of Flames. That's hot. Okay.
Yeah. So the 6 red mana and 9 damage pointed at you however you want, plus it's 3 actual spell casts. It would trigger things like Magecraft.
Yes.
Like the thing, I've got the...
There we go.
Want to kill an artist that flips treasures and stuff like that. But yeah, you're totally right. Thanks for calling me out.
No, you good, bro. I don't want to stop.
I've not been able to extend this in a real game. I have, on the other hand, though, overloaded a Mizzix Mastery in a real game.
Tell me about that, brother.
8 mana, but it only costs 7 in this deck, which is like kind of doable, right? Like in a regular situation, most situations, you could actually do this because you're all mana.
Right.
So this card just eats your whole graveyard and exiles all the instants and sorceries, and then you just cast them all. And then, well, you copy them, they get exiled, you copy them, and then you cast the copies. The cool thing is you cast the copies, so those copies do get actually cast, which do trigger. If you ever overload a Mizzix Mastery, you're also flipping around. Like, you're not flipping around at that point.
Yes.
So yeah, those are the last ones I wanted to talk about with Recursion, because they're just so powerful. And this is a big part of the reason why we love Feeding Our Yard, why we play Faithless Looting, or Wheel of Fortune and Windfall, and all these other cards.
Yes, no, 100%. I appreciate the extra time to talk about the high end of these cards, because as you bring up floor and ceilings, you know what I'm saying? On the floor, it's 2 red mana, you get 3 casts, or a Mystic Mastery, you're paying a red and 2 colors, you're still getting a minimum of 2 casts, you know what I'm saying? But the ceilings for these cards are phenomenal. And I love if you all are interested in really entering the brewing world, these are the type of things I really encourage you to keep in mind, like floor and ceiling. So, bruh, killing it, bruh. And so I love that. And so, but to get to these ceilings though, we gotta have mana. So, could you talk to me about our ramp package, brother?
Sure. Yeah, it's just like so much of the deck is mana. So if you go to fast mana /mana rocks, I think it is fast mana /rocks. So it's just all the good rocks.
Yep.
The only one we're not playing is Mana Vault, like we talked about before. We don't need 1 mana turn off that gets turned off with the first time that you cast it. Like Soul Ring is just like in Vintage Cube, Soul Ring is pack one, pick one. In my personal opinion, it's super close with cards like Time Walk and Ancestral Recall and Black Lotus. But for me personally, Soul Ring is pack one, pick one. If it's the first pack and I don't know what's coming next, Soul Ring is the best card in Magic's history. Like for what it does,
right,
in a vacuum, right? So because of that, I'm still playing it, obviously.
Right.
But there's a world where maybe you don't need to be playing that card. Like, you know, if there were other cards that made red mana instead, sure, I could maybe see that. But to me, it's just broken enough that you still play. Because, like, even going turn 1 Soul Ring into Ruby Medallion and then just absolutely just raffle stomping the table on turn 2 because you have so much mana and so much cost reduction into your commander, I could see doing that too. But anyways, so it's all the good mana rocks except for Mana Vault. You are on Soul Ring. Mana Vapor we talked about before. I put this in mana mana advantage because you can target all your mana rocks and bounce them back to your hand and keep going off.
Makes
Rite
sense.
of Flame. We're on as many of the good rituals as we can, and in fact, we're on a bunch of the rituals that are absolutely garbage. So we're on Rite of Flame. Strike It Rich is a weird one, but I love it. You just kind of spin your wheels and make treasures, and also it has recursion out of the graveyard. Desperate Ritual and Pyretic Ritual are all, more or less the identical card. I'm not playing any arcane spells, so Desperate Ritual never really has any text to be able to splice into arcane.
100%.
Both of these are a red and a generic for an instant that's a make 3 red mana. We talked about Ruby Medallion. Runaway Steamkin is essentially like a permanent based, and I personally believe a staple of this deck, a permanent based creature. So it's a red and a generic for an elemental that's a 1/1. It says whenever you cast a red spell, if it has fewer than 3, so up to 3 +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on Runaway Steamkin. So you don't do it, let's say you have 3 counters on it already, you don't do it if you cast a red spell and it has 3. And then it has another ability, remove 3 +1/+1 counters from it, add 3 red. So the good way to think about this is every red spell is a 1/3 of a Burgundy trigger. It's 1/3 of a red mana, except for it gets stored permanently on it in the form of +1/+1 counters. Burgundy's great. Runaway Steamkin must also be great because it costs 1 less mana, but it also adds less mana, but it, you get to kind of keep going off. Also, really important to remember, this says cast a red spell. Has to be red. Burgundy doesn't give a shit. Burgy's out here just doing whatever Burgy's going to do. Whenever you cast a spell at all, you add red mana. So,
right.
In addition to that, as far as rituals go, we also have, I put Glimpse of the Impossible in here because you can do that thing we talked about where we go to the end step and you let it, the trigger happen and you make those Eldrazi spawns. Jessica's Will makes a shit ton of red mana. It's one of the best cards in the deck. Thieving Song in this deck is 2 mana, make 5 red mana. Essentially, this is always a threshold Cabal ritual, which is so good.
Fucking amazing.
Seize the Spotlight, as a reminder, makes treasures if they don't want me to steal their cards. So I draw cards and steal and make treasures, which is really good. Steven Spirit Guide, fast mana. Snap is removal that also untaps 2 lands, and it only costs 1 blue. So if this is on turn 1, which is doable, if this is on turn 1, it only is free. It's free removal. Because you usually don't have 2 lands on turn 1 unless you went turn 0 Gemstone. But on turn 2 and beyond, this is a ritual, or this is like almost like a Rite of Flame, I guess, but it also is removal. And then the super spicy one here is Inner Fire. So Inner Fire is 3 generic and a red for a sorcery, and it says add red to your mana pool for each card in your hand. Believe me when I tell you this, that I scoured Scryfall trying to find all of the best ways to make more mana, and I looked at a lot of cards like Battle Hymn and Brightstone Ritual, and there's this weird card that's like something Fissure that's like a red and a generic, sacrifice any number of lands. For each land you sacrifice, make 1 colorless mana, like things like that. There's all these weird ritual effects, but this is really the best suite that I could find that does what we want to do, which is make red mana on an instant or sorcery, or be it has to be super broken permanent based engine to make mana, like Burgy or Steamkin. So that's why I'm not on all of the permanent based ways to make more mana or make treasures, but I'm on what I believe to be the most broken ones. Obviously, 100%. Dockside's in there because Dockside does Dockside things.
Exactly.
And Inner Fire is also really sweet too if you have copies of it, like if you have a bonus round, the first copy goes off and it just makes like maybe 3 or 4 red mana because you only have 3 or 4 cards in your hand. And in response to the original, you then do something that puts more cards in your hand, that you like draw cards at instant speed to fill your hand up more, and then let the original resolve, making even more mana. So you can do some fun things with it.
Gotcha.
It's really good post Windfall or Wheel or whatever. And then in addition to that, you also have what I consider kind of the same package: Stormkiln Artist and Tavern Scoundrel. Tavern Scoundrel, I would say, I wouldn't fault you if you didn't play this card. I think it's really good. It's a red and a generic, and it just says whenever you win a coin flip, create 2 treasure tokens. So you can also think about this as it says whenever you flip a coin, make a treasure. Statistically, it's the same, but that's only in theory, because there's 2 treasures being made, but you have a 50-50 chance to win them. So in practice, you can really high roll this card, or you can really low roll this card and never make treasures. But I'm cool with that. Let's roll the motherfucking dice. Like, let's go. And then Storm, and the reason why, in case anybody missed this, RAL has coin flips on instants and sorceries, just as a reminder. Stormkiln Artist also says whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a treasure token. What's really important about this is copies also count for this. So if you Grave Shot or Mind's Desire, it's also a ritual now. It's just broken. This card is so busted. It works with bonus round copies. It works with the copies from Mizzix Mastery. I guess now that we found out that this is the way that it works with the copies from X's 10 finale of Promise, right? Yeah, so it's pretty powerful. And then in addition to that, it also works with the Cypher copy from Hidden Strings too. And Hidden Strings within this deck, if you know me, you know I love this card. It's really, really good. In this deck especially, it's only 1 blue mana. It says you may tap or untap target permanent, then you may tap or untap another target permanent. You could essentially untap 2 lands or a land, mana rock or whatever. And then it has Cypher, so you just basically imprint it onto a creature. It never hits the graveyard, it just gets imprinted into exile. And then when that creature connects and deals combat damage per player, you get to copy and cast the copy. So this is a spell cast, which is really important because if you go turn 1 RAL, turn 2 Hidden Strings, untapping your lands, and then go to combat and connect with RAL, this is another spell cast. So it's 2 spell casts in a turn, and it makes a fuck ton of mana. Like, it's usually 1 blue mana make 4 mana minimum. But sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes you untap like a Soul Ring or something. And yeah, card is really, really good. It's a really good way to filter mana too. Like if you only have red mana, or you have 1 blue mana for Lotus Petal or something, and like 2 red lands, you can untap. You can use the blue mana as a way to ritual up with red mana. And if you have a mana rock in play, you can cast the mana rock like an Arcane Signet, then go to combat, then connect and untap a red and a blue, and you got 2 spell casts out of it, and you're more or less at the same mana cost. You started the turn with 3 mana, and now you have 2 mana, but you have to filter it into red and blue while also giving you 2 spell casts. So you can kind of do some funky things with this card that you wouldn't normally expect. And as we said, it's your Stormkiln Artist.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I'll fuck with that, man. Amazing ramp package. Before we go to our notable land-based inclusions, we had a question from the audience from Techno Mage. Am I going to see this at the Top Deck GG Open ? Is this something we'll see there?
I wish I could make it to the Open. I would have loved to be able to go there. I actually didn't realize that there was a separate event that like you didn't have to qualify for, because I didn't qualify for the Top 64. I didn't play enough events. But I don't know. I don't know if you're going to see it. I hope somebody sleeves it up and brings it, but then somebody's not going to be me. I think one of the 2 members of Deck Tech MTG, which is a different content creator group that is Gaines, or however you pronounce their name, and Samurai Dancer, that's the 2 of them. Because Samurai has played this deck, and I know Gaines is interested in this deck, maybe they bring it. Like, that would be super sick. But yeah, not for me, but thanks for asking. If somebody else out there sees this, you should definitely play this fucking deck. It's sick as hell, and it goes really fast, which is awesome for tournaments.
Yes, 100%. I agree, brother. All right, well, quick, let's see. We've talked about how we go quick. Now we got to talk about my big question that I was going to ask at the very beginning. I was going to ask 22, but I'll give you the 23. Land-based. First thing, before we even get into notable land-based, we are on 23 lands, including our Lorien's Revealed. Talk to me about that, brother. How No shade.
Listen, don't do
You know
dirty.
me,
It's
bro.
22. Come on, it's 22. Let's be real. It's 22.
Okay, I was giving you a flower. I was gonna give you 23. I was gonna feel like we
Listen,
can
the
call
way
it
I
20.
get my flowers is being on less lands. I think this is a badge of honor. If I could play like sub 20 lands, I would. No joke. And anybody who plays with me in person, everybody's in the chat who's from Tucson, who's out here in the heat, in the triple-digit Fahrenheit monsoon weather, they know that I don't want to pack more lands because it's just gonna weigh me down. Let's just put a couple more spells in there. Why not? Yeah, Shane knows. Baphomet goes 100%. He hates lands. It's true. Me and lands have this terrible relationship. It's like Antonio Montoya. I killed your father. You killed my father, and now you're gonna die. Lands must have done that to somebody I love. But I'm on 22 lands because this deck is so many rituals and so many ways to make fast mana and Lotus Petals and all the rocks, and then Simeon Spirit Guide and Rite of Flame and Desperate Ritual and Pyretic Ritual and all the stuff we just talked about. You really almost always just need one to get going. And even then, you don't technically need one. Like, if I've kept opening hands that don't have lands that are just like Jeweled Lotus to cast my commander, and then like a Lotus Petal plus some sort of ritual, and then a Jeska's Will, and we're off to the races. That hand is probably going to actually turn one, win the game. That's insane to think about, but it's very, very doable. And that was only how many cards? Jeska's Will, Lotus Petal, Ritual, and
it's 4 or 5 cards.
Okay, well, that's 4 cards.
Shit.
Because your commander's in the command zone. So you could mull to 4 and turn 1, win the game with no lands. I know that sounds wild, but that's very fucking doable in this deck. So that's why I'm only on 22 lands. And if you notice, here's the even sicker part. You thought I was wild before. How many fetchable targets are you looking at?
Shit, we're looking at, let's see, of course we got 1 mountain in here, we got a steam vents, we got a Valk, and I think that's it.
So this is really important to me because I want to fetch, so I want every fetch because I got to fill my yard for breach and be able to do as much fuel as I can. And then I'm playing as many MDFCs as I can because spells are better than lands, as we've just talked about.
100%.
It's just like a unknown truth. And so I'm on 4 MDFCs. I'm on Shatter Skull, Sink into Stupor, Seagate, and Pinnacle Monk, which we've already touched in the different categories. Then I'm on the best dual land outside of a typed dual land, which is Training Center Grounds or whatever. Center, I guess. The blue-red center commander one. And then I'm on all the fetches like we talked about. And then now we get into the kind of second best tapped character. So if I'm only on 3 fetchable targets, that means I can play Spirebluff now because I'm never winning a game where I need to play my 4th land. If I need to play a 4th land in a game, this is a dead game. I'm not winning this game. So Spirebluff Canal is a fast land, and just tap if it's beyond the 3rd. But it's also just a dual land.
This
has no downside otherwise.
This is the first list that I will objectively say you probably are making a mistake if you weren't running this land, because if you're only looking to make it at longest till turn 3, no, I'm with this. I'm actually really with the Spirebluff Canal. I'm with that. Keep going, brother. I'm with that. Yeah.
And then Shivan Reef, the Apocalypse art and border is so hot, and I remember playing with this card, pulling it from Magic packs back in 99, 2000. It's super sick. But Shivan Reef is a pain land. So it's kind of the next best thing, I guess. Gotcha. The only real downside for this one, outside of it doesn't damage to you, but who cares? I'm never dying to combat damage. I'm dying to me fizzling. That's literally the way you lose in this game is you fizzle, or someone counters your commander on turn 1 and then slams his Graneth and you're held after. You had a mull of 5 or sure, you're losing that game anyway, but whatever. You never die to damage. The only downside though is if there's not Nicholas in play, taking the 1 damage off tapping or whatever. Right. That's a fringe downside. Ob doesn't see a lot of play right now, although I think it should.
Yeah, I think it's hot take. I think it's the best Rakdos deck ever printed. But no, there is
I agree.
I feel like if there's a well pilot to balance turbo with patience, I could talk about that all day. We're talking about your land base right now. Keep talking about your land base.
Yeah. So this is also a really important note. Remember that this is 54% red mana, and then the rest isn't blue. It's I think it's 30-something% blue, 32% blue.
Right.
So there's a lot of colorless as well, or generic costs, which means I am really a red deck. And also, if you notice, the majority of my turn 1 plays are red. That's also very intentional. All the cards that are really good to actually play on turn 1 are red, with the one exception being Mystic Remora as a 1-drop on turn 1 in blue. And I guess if you want to think about it like this, if you also include like Soul Ring sort of mana and stuff like that, then sure, there's like Polywog and Heuristics type. Because there's 2 game plans for this deck. One is win the game right now, turbo off, blah blah blah, flip your RAL, do the thing. But if you obviously don't have a hand that does that, and you think that you're going to mulligan into the tank too hard, you also can do the backup plan, which is a very backup plan, but the backup plan of going turn 1 Mystic, Heristic, or Polywog. So you now have 3 Heristic Study effects in your deck. In your decks now, which is so crazy. So if you can do that on turn 1, then sure, that's good too. So that's a big part of the reason why we're looking at this mana blaze. I'm not on a lot of powerful colorless lanes. I'm not on Urza Saga. I'm not on City of Creators. I'm Crystal Vein, the main vein, the homie with his hands out, and Mirage being like, I'm not on that land that sacks itself for 2 colorless. Yeah. I'm not on any sort of tap land. That's an important note. Some lists are on Thundering Falls, and my opinion of that is you can do that in Rogsai because you're not. This deck, in my opinion, is more turbo than Rogsai. You are trying to win faster than Rogsai. That's another reason why I think that this is positioned a little bit better, is because it can get under Rogsai, where a lot of decks in the format just can't do that. I think maybe Crick could do it. Maybe
what's the John Dragon Corvold?
Oh yeah, Corvold maybe could do it if you built it that way to be like super all in. Yeah. But a lot of those decks are like a little scared to be that all in because it uses such a blowout if somebody interacts. Yeah. Whereas here, if people interact, only certain types of interaction blow you out because, like we talked about, flipping your commander is really hard to interact with, and then you just win from there. But anyways, so the only real colorless lands that I have in the deck are Ancient Tomb because it's just such a good card, full stop, that I can usually get away with it. But there's a world where maybe I am supposed to cut this and just put another mountain in the deck. Like I've actually thought about this.
In the worst universe, I'm gonna be fully transparent. Mana Crypt, Ancient Tomb, Soul Ring. I see these as, say someone's really scared of your deck and they force will your commander. All right, cool. I still have the soul lands and the rocks to help push it out. Because once again, your commander is only fucking 2 mana, dude. You know what I'm saying?
It's insane.
You have.
Why does this card only cost 2 mana?
I fucking Modern Horizons 3. Fucking I'll tell you that. That's exactly why. But yeah, I think
so wild.
Yeah, like I think it's really. I think I agree with you. The fact that they're just generically so powerful, and it never hurts to be able to go Ancient Tomb into an Arcane Signet. You know what I'm saying? It never hurts to be able to go have the extra colorless floating and then sack it to a Chain of Vapor. Like it's
and you're playing enough 0-drops and a Simian Spirit Guide that sometimes you just go Ancient Tomb RAL.
Yeah,
you just go Ancient Tomb Lotus Petal RAL, Ancient Tomb Simian Spirit Guide RAL, and then you have 1 mana floating. And sometimes you can still do something with that, like find a line from there. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm also on cEDH staple Cybertron because that's a really good card too.
Oh yeah, all day every day.
Yeah, that's Command Tower, and yeah, my only colorless lands are Ancient Tomb and Gemstone.
Question: do you see a universe where you could switch Command Tower, aka Cybertron cEDH staple, with a mountain?
I guess maybe just for Lava Dart or the fetches, but the thing is it's a dual land, and like I mentioned before, I'm never ever fetching. Usually, I'm never fetching beyond a 2nd fetch.
True.
But I'm definitely never fetching beyond 3. It's the same reason why you can play Spiral of Canals. You're never putting a 4th land into play. Like it's just. I mean, maybe if it's your turn 3, you go off, and part of you going off involves a Final Fortune. But even then, like. You have so much setup that like you don't even need a 4th land. Like the deck just does everything it needs to do, starting with 1 red mana.
Gotcha.
Because you already have the cost reducer, you know. So even 2-drops are now 1-drops, and then they all start chaining into each other, and you know.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense to me. And also, just to be fair, kind of to counter my own question, we did talk about how Blue Pips us fully stormed off and looking like having to do payoffs blue pips are precious because we do like a lot of our rituals create red mana. So I can definitely see we're having that command tower, aka Cybertron, best land in the planet. Having that
the Planet Optimist or whatever. I don't even know. I just put it there as a meme, but I actually play with that version of Command Tower in paper.
Oh fuck yes!
I ordered it off of TCG Player specifically to play with that version of that card.
No fuck yes! I think that's fun. Like I'm not gonna lie. Look, I know we play in cEDH, but we can still have some fun, y'all. So no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Having that blue pip is precious. You know, I definitely can hear you there, man. Well, shit, you've been talking about how amazing these. How these hands are looking, and I want to go into mulligans, but I want to ask before we move to mulligans, are there any other notable categories that you would love to touch on before we move forward?
I think we basically covered everything. I guess the only last thing that I would say is it's really an important and pivotal decision point whether or not you play the front side or back side of Berkey. That actually does come up quite a bit in games.
Okay.
And I used to play with this mindset of you always play Berkey on the front no matter what. Just is so good. You just basically every card you play makes you more mana, and then all your mana rocks start turning into rituals. It's just so nuts, you know?
Right.
But I will say that when you're trying to go off, this deck, its choke point isn't usually mana because you have this medallion in the command zone, you know, this Goblin Electromancer effect in the command zone. And the backside of that card is so freaking good. Harnfell. It just discard a card, basically discard a card, draw two. It's not actually that, but it may as well be that.
Yeah.
And we're already so weak to Drannith effects anyways that I don't ever worry about oh well, what if I can't cast spells out of exile? Then it's not as good. Well, whatever, we're dead to that anyway.
Exactly. We weren't flipping it either way then.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's just anyways. I just wanted to point that out that it's a very important a pivotal moment in a lot of games to think about.
Yeah, if I could just add on to that, I think that's a mindset we need as cEDH players. We need to have in general. I saw this shout out to what is this content creator's name? Rebel. Yes, Rebel plays Sisse, plays a lot of decks, but Sisse is one of the decks they really run with the Gigantha version. But I think that may have been more back in the day. And they were in their video, they were basically talking about one mistake people make in competitive is they go brain dead and they will just go on autopilot. That's what it's called. And I feel like that's one of the biggest mistakes that we can make, especially in tournaments, because of the variance of us playing not just the most complicated game on the planet, but in addition, 4-player, there's so much that can happen in between your turn and the two players later that you really have to stay alert. And of course you'll start to see play patterns, you can respond quicker, but you can't navigate this game with absolutes of if you see this then this. No, you'll have your, I think they're called heuristicals or whatever, not
heuristics.
Heuristics, thank you. You'll have those things where you can kind of see a pattern. I'll if they do this, I'll do this, but at the same time, you need to understand, always stay fluid and in flow. And I love how you brought up this example. It's I went from always go the front side is so good to, hey, there's some times where because my commander is so good at helping me stay ahead of mana, I may want to use the backside to just get rid of these pesky who the fuck needs lands and use them to keep going further down. You know what I'm saying? So I love that wisdom you dropped right there, brother. I 100% agree right there, man. So just wanted to add that on.
For sure.
Yeah. But if we have no more categories to talk about, we got to see some mulligans, brother, because you've been talking this deck up, brother, and I'm excited to see some mulligans. So what I'm going to do is...
Whitby just asked what I think is a pretty interesting question really quick, though, if you don't mind.
Oh, no problem. I'll go ahead. Yes.
Witty, this is an awesome name, Witty Zitty. Witty Zitty in the chat said, in your opinion, do people need to tech or mulligan against this deck similar to how they do against Rogside? And I would say to that, I would think about it almost the way that you think about kind of like Nadu, actually, where the time to interact when Nadu's in play is gone. You're dead already.
Yes, I agree.
It's not that you're truly dead, but it's just
it's so hard
cool.
To get out
so you target Nadu and try to kill it, and then the person gets a Nadu trigger and they get a draw card or put a land into play, and then they respond by targeting their own Nadu, and they get another draw and they get a trigger, and maybe they then draw into the Force of Will and then counter your thing, and then you try to go off again and they redirect a spell site and they get another trigger. Like you're so far behind if you're trying to interact once the person is already like going on. But the reason why this is even harder to interact with is because the cost requirement for the commander is so cheap, and it's also only in one color.
Yes.
Which means it's very easy. Like, think about how often are you going to see a turn 1 Nadu? It's really just if they have the god hand of like Lotus Land and one other effect, like I don't know, an Elder Spirit Guide or something like that, or if they have Jeweled Lotus and a land. Those are the only times you're going to see a turn 1 Nadu. Yeah. And that deck has a hard time keeping hands like that, because then you also need a bunch of other setup. You need other creatures, you need things like that. And I would say, not that I want to give away too much of how to really make it happen, but if I'm sitting, Winston, if I'm sitting there and playing against this deck against me, I would really strongly consider talking with the table when I go to put this commander on the stack. Like, that's the time to interact, is when the commander's on the stack. I would start having a conversation with the table of like, hey, are you guys worried about this? Like, do you think he has enough mana to do anything this turn? Because it's not like I put it in a play and just win the game immediately. That doesn't really happen usually. It can. It's like about a maybe 20% chance to happen, which is pretty freaking high for this format. Yeah. But it's really the case that if it comes back to my turn and it's still in play, then for sure I'm going off. And so the question you have to ask is like, is my removal good enough? Because what if I had a force of will thing and you go to put a fatal push on the stack going to my turn and I just force it and nobody else has an interaction, we go to my turn and I win. So yeah, that was a great question. I think it's kind of similar to like a Nadu, like a very commander based sort of deck. It's also really important to note, though, that this deck does not need the commander to win at all. Nothing on the commander says some weird, funky thing.
Why did you say that? No.
Well, I'm just being real. Like, you know what else wins the game? Just intuition. Just a card intuition.
Yeah.
You know what else wins the game? Just a card Underworld Breach. Like, also, there's plenty of games where I just go turn 1 Windfall.
Yeah.
Or turn 1 Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
And I just reset the entire table into the fucking earth, because I know what my deck is full of. It's full of a bunch of fast mana and card draw. So I'm going to figure it out eventually. All my top decks are gas, and I'm playing so few lands. But the rest of the table doesn't have that luxury. And if they're on, dare I say it, 24 lands or more, then, they've got a chance to rip into 7 lands, not actually, but 3 lands, 4 lands, 5 lands, and that's a bad hand in cEDH. So anyways, yeah, I guess to your point, Winston, it's just that the putting it lightly, this is a kill on sight commander, and it needs to be kill on sight on the stack usually.
Yes, I love the comparison to Nadu. I think that is, especially after your explanation of it, I really think that's a really great way to put it. And like, for anybody who's wondering how to beat Nadu, I personally find my win rate against Nadu increases when I respect Nadu. And so if I can't counter it on the stack, because a lot of Nadu players are very good to get out there. What is their the green the Delighted Halfling? They'll have their Delighted Halfling out. I find that they always have the Delighted Halfling. And so what I will do is either have ready the hard cast Mindbreak Trap, which is not as hard as people think, especially, well, granted, I'm thinking for my Satya list, it's not really that impossible. Or what I will do is, if I know we're going into their turn, some pilots will push out the Fatal Alchemist turn 1 or turn 2, turn 1 going to turn 2 Nadu. I will go ahead and silence the upkeep. And some people may argue, interaction is premium. You don't want to waste your interaction. No, if you haven't played against a Fatal Alchemist and Nadu, then that is game.
Yeah, you don't understand. It's like saying they go turn 1 Shuko, and then they also happen to have like a Chrome Box or something.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're getting turn 2 Nadu, and they're gonna just do the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, they can fizzle. Yes, statistically speaking, they won't fizzle. So and
even if they fizzle, it's a deck that fizzles like when it fails up. It's like corporate America. All you have to do is be like a middle-aged white Christian man. You're gonna make your way into the school board. Literally, I mean, that's essentially how Nadu plays. It's like you just fail up the corporate ladder, And that's kind of what happens with Nadu. It's like, sure, they failed, but they failed and drew 4 cards 2 of them were lands that went directly into play. Sure, you kill their commander. Guess what? Guess who has enough mana to recast the commander with no sweat at all the next turn and do it all over again? So, yeah, I mean, I totally agree.
Their fail cases, I just put 3 interaction spells and 2 lands on the board. Oh shit! Now no one can win except them. But yeah, let's get into these mulligans, brother. Man, thank you thank you so much for that moment of Nadu, because I needed that, because I've been telling people I don't lose as much as some people may lose against Nadu, because I respect the deck. I feel like people need to understand it's a good deck. Can we just stop gawking on it? It's a good deck, y'all. Respect it. But I'm going to go ahead and roll a D8 for turn order. It says you got a 6, so you're going third. Our pod is going to be, first seat is going to be Nadu. Second seat is going to be Rogsai. You are going third. And Tim the Crom is going fourth. And I'm going to give you a fresh 7. First 7 is Misty Rainforest, Flooded Strand, Polywog Prodigy, Windfall, Lightning Bolt, Ren's Resolve, and Past in Flames.
I would mulligan, because this doesn't win the game on turn 1, and it also doesn't Windfall on turn 1, and it also doesn't Polywog on turn 1.
I agree.
I mean, and what am I going to do? Hold up a Lightning Bolt? And realistically, like, what am I going to hold it up for? I'm killing Roger.
Right.
Like, I know that sounds crazy, but I'm killing fucking Rograk. Like, if this was my mold of 4, I would probably keep this hand, and I would keep it on the back of Land, Prodigy, Lightning Bolt.
Kill the Roger.
And just kill the Roger on turn 1 and try to go turn 2 Polywog and hope to ride that to victory, and hope everyone else has interaction or I draw into something good, you know?
Right.
But yeah, I'm going to mulligan this.
All right. Second 7, we got Ancient Tomb, Steam Vents, Misty Rainforest. How are you drawing so many damn lands? Flusterstorm.
I swear to God, this shit happens in real life too. Anybody in the chat can tell you it's true. I swear to God, I will sleeve up a 22 land deck and have opening 7s with 3 lands every time. It's nuts. I don't know how.
Well,
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I just was like, wait, what the fuck is this? We got Ancient Tomb, Steam Vents, Misty Rainforest, Flusterstorm, Demand Answers, Return the Favor, and Reiterate.
So the only thing that's like going to bail us out of this hand is the Ancient Tomb plus Demand Answers.
Yeah.
Because the Demand Answers is the way to card draw our way back out of this.
Mm-hmm.
I would still just snap mulligan this. Like, I wouldn't even really think about it, because it's 3 lands, which is fine, but there's no fast mana at all. And Return the Favor and Reiterate, we talked about them earlier. They're kind of in the same section of card. They're like an interactive card that wants to hold priority and interact on our own stuff.
Right.
And we don't have anything to get us to there. So you have to just kind of like naked Demand Answers, probably on turn, I guess, maybe 2 if you got fast mana, but even then, it's not guaranteed, because you'd have to go like turn 1 commander, or you'd have to go turn 1 land, turn 2, and hope that you hit a fast mana piece with Ancient Tomb, cast the commander, then cast the Demand Answers and try to go off. But like, that's so much hoping and praying, and
a lot of hopium. Yeah, we have in the chat right now. Digital is saying average lands in opening is 1.5. A lie detector test says that's a lie. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I would be on your side. We just did 2 hands back to back. Was it a 3 land, or what was, how many lands was the last? I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, it was.
I know the number.
Yeah.
The number says 1.56 average lands, but we just saw 2 3-landers. So until I see a 0-lander to balance out this 1.56, this is I don't know. This is probably because it's Holden's deck. I don't know. All right, let's go see a 6 though.
Watch us now mulligan into the dirt. But yeah, go ahead.
Let's see a 6. A 2-lander. We have Command Tower,
oh
Spire Bluff Canal, and Offer You Can Refuse, Mystic Retrieval, Rite of Flame, Demand Answers, and Return the Favor.
I think what did you say? So it was Rogsai, Tim Necrom, me, and then something else?
Nadu's going first, Rogsai, then you. Yeah, so Nadu first, Rogsai, you, and then Tim Necrom.
Yeah, I'd probably keep this. I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, you can definitely have way more broken starts than this, but to just be able to go like turn 1 commander, turn 2 Demand Answers, or turn 2 if you draw any 0, you get to go turn 2, play the 0, hold priority, offer you can't refuse it into 2 treasures. Now you have 3 mana, which means you can then demand answers, and the card you discard for demand answers for the 1 mana is Mystic Retrieval, which you can then play in the graveyard for 2. Like if you hit any other mana, you then get to Mystic Retrieval back to Rite of Flame and continue. Like these cards all chain into each other pretty well.
Yeah.
And also Return the Favor gets really nutty if there's like something, if it's obvious based off of something else that's on the board that you want to steal the effect of.
Yeah.
Like if it seems very likely like there's going to be some sort of trigger that you're going to gain a bunch of effect of with Return the Favor, you could just go turn 1 commander pass, and on turn 2 pass and hold up the 2 mana for Return the Favor to be able to instant steal something like a trigger or redirect the spell. So
gotcha. Okay. So with this being the 6, what would you recommend the card we bottom then?
Probably, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I guess it would depend on what other people mulligan to, but probably Return the Favor.
Okay.
Just because everything else in this hand does what I want it to do. The only other card I could see you mulliganing would be an Offer, because you would want to keep Return the Favor to hold up on turn 2. So then you're not going to do the turbo hold priority, offer your own Chromox sort of line. So.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I agree on Return the Favor. I think it's the most flexible card in our opening hand, but at the same time, we're on a 6. Offer can be both protection and offensive work, and seeing how there's universe where you may want to respect there's rock side in the pot, but we're turbo. We're trying to go faster than the rock side. So Offer or Return the Favor, I could see if we could throw that to the wolves, but we'll see. Yeah, I think this is a great 6. You want to go see another 7?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, one more.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. This last one is, I got a 4, so you're going second this time. We'll say there is a Tivit going first. You're going second.
Yeah.
Player 3 is a Satya Aetherflux Genius. So Jeskai, Breach, and some creature lines.
Oh, I know the deck. The owner of our store, actually, Michael Eakin, shout out the Top Deck game store in Tucson, Arizona. But he plays this Satya deck, actually. So whenever I see you coming up with hot spiciness, I'm always like, oh, fuck, I hope Michael doesn't bust that out on me.
Hey, bro, have him message me. I've been in love with this deck. But so we'll say Tivit, you, Satya. Player 4, let's get a meta deck. Yeah, it's still Kennen. It's a little OG now, but yeah, Kennen. Kennen is number 4. All right, so our first 7 is Training Center, Shadow Skull Smashing, and Offer You Can't Refuse, Intuition, Windfall, Tavern Scoundrel, and Deflecting SWAT.
It's crazy. This is actually kind of close on on being in turn 2. I mean, I'm still gonna mull this because you have so many mulligans in Commander, and with a deck like this, you're trying to just like turbo win the game.
Yeah.
But this is pretty close because Tavern Scoundrel has surprised me with how busted it is.
Yeah.
And Deflecting SWAT is a great way for me to just, first of all, if I draw any mana ramp off the top, you're noticing a theme, right? All I'm looking to always draw is mana,
right.
which the deck has a bunch of.
Yeah.
But if I draw any fast mana off the top, then we get to just go turn 1 Commander, hold up SWAT, go to turn 2, and try to go off from there, because we get to go turn 2 Intuition, because remember it costs 2. Right. Or we can even go, depending on what the fast mana was, like if it was Crypt or something, you could go turn 2 Tavern Scoundrel with the ability to 1, 2, 3, 4 Tavern Scoundrel. You'd be able to go turn 2 Tavern Scoundrel and cast an Intuition for all free mana, and if you win the flip off the Scoundrel, you get to just Windfall afterwards and win the game. Like, it's just, I don't know, like these hands kind of play themselves. They're kind of nuts. So I like, if this was a 6 or a 5, I would keep this for sure.
Okay.
But I would say let's mulligan. Before we mulligan it though, can you just draw a card? I'm just curious what that top card would have been.
What? How did you know? It's a Mox Diamond.
Oh, well,
how did you know?
Good and bad. I mean, this is turn 1 Commander, hold up the SWAT.
Yeah.
You have to play the Shatter Skull though.
Yeah.
You can't pitch it to the Mox Diamond. What's crazy though is,
how the fuck did you know that? Get
you could
out
also
of here,
go the other way. Like you could play slow and go. No, you can't do that. I was thinking you could offer the Mox Diamond, but no. Yeah, I don't know. That's just. But this is what I'm talking about. The whole deck has like so much fast mana. Like if we had ripped a Rite of Flame, if we had ripped a Simian Spirit Guide, a Chrome Mox, a Mox Diamond, like just you have so many options. Dual Lotus.
Yeah. Okay. No, but that I'm sorry. You're fucking that was impressive. But let's check a second 7. We have Shivan Reef, Pact of Negation, Mental Misstep, Mystic Remora, Hidden Strings, Windfall, and Grape Shot.
And see, this is actually also a very good hand, which is crazy. Like, this is only
Turn one
one
fish.
lander, but you get to go turn one Remora while holding up a misstep.
That's, I'm gonna be honest, that's a 3 I'd keep. The other 4 are just beautiful. Yeah.
And the other nuts thing about this, because it's second 7, so you get to keep all these cards, is, as we talked about before, Hidden Strings is really powerful as mana ramp. It's kind of weird how many blue cards we have in our hand, because that's like not very common.
Yeah.
Grape Shot, I normally actually don't want to see in my opener, just because it's like the win con that just does damage, whatever.
Right.
Sometimes you can deal with shit that you need to get off the board, but and the Windfall is a really great way to bail out this hand too, in case anything goes wonky. But the other crazy part about this is, because you have a Pact of Negation hand, like if I was in a tournament, this is a great hand for a tournament, because you can show the table like, hey, I got a Pact of Negation. If I cast it, I lose the game on my turn because I don't have a way to pay for it. But if I don't cast it, this person who has an Adnals on the stack right now is going to win the game, and they're two Heuristics study players. I'd like to propose a draw. Like, you think it's like kind of force politic draws. And in tournaments, it's very different than it is in like just kind of quote unquote normal
pickup games. Yeah,
because there's nothing actually on the line in a pickup game, so like a draw doesn't matter. A draw is the same as a loss, essentially.
Exactly.
Whereas in a tournament, a draw isn't the same as a loss at all. It's actually really good for your odds of making it into the top 16 or top 4.
Exactly.
So yeah, the hand is like way better than I would actually give it credit for at first glance. I would say I would keep this hand in an actual high level event like a tournament, especially because I'm on seat 2, so 3, 4, and then 1 again are going to have to try to not feed the fish, and I get to hold up misstep as my own interaction. But I think especially in like the first round of a tournament, this is like a local or something, I would probably ship this, because this is second.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So for today, for this deck, for the deck tech, what do you give me a final verdict? We shipping it or we keeping it?
Well, especially because Kinnan is going after me, and they play a lot of dorks. Like I would probably ship this. They play a lot of rocks too, but I would ship this.
Okay. All right. We'll ship it back. Let's go check out a 6. We have Bloodstained Mire. What the fuck? Bloodstained Mire, Mystic Remora, Force of Will, Mind's Desire, Gamble, Return the Favor, and Mizzix's Mastery. So we have the fish again.
It sucks because none of these hands win the game on turn 1, but these are all just good hands. Like I would probably, if I'm being real, I'd probably keep this hand just because you can go, land. You keep land, Remora, Force of Will, Mind's Desire, Gamble, and then
Return, I guess.
The higher upside card.
I'm guessing Return the Favor.
Yeah, I guess Return.
Yeah. Even though the double red is kind of tough, you don't plan on casting it immediately either way,
Yeah, the thing is basically like, you turn 1 Remora, and then you hold up the force for if somebody tries to, if they try to interact over your Remora, you force back. But other than that, you force literally nothing outside of maybe Adraneth. But even then, I don't even know if I force Adraneth.
Yeah, at that point, Kenny got to do a turn 1 Basalt at that point, some crazy shit like that.
So I would say, like, you get to draw a bunch off the Remora, and then if you hit any land or fast mana source, you're good to go. If you don't, when you go to your turn, you have to let the Remora die, and then you gamble for a mana source.
Got you.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll say bottom is
Mastery. Digital Cyclone said feels bad having to exile the Mind's Desire, though, but that's only if there's something that's forcible.
Right.
The only thing forcing is their interaction on my Remora, or their interaction on, or their like maybe Draneth type effect kind of thing, like maybe.
Yeah.
Or obviously if they're trying to win the game. If they just, I don't remember who's in the pod after me.
Yeah, it was Satya and Kinnan. Yeah. Satya's, I'm gonna be honest, Satya's not gonna win before you. Like, not the deck is fast, but Satya is a turn 3 to 4 deck. Seldomly is it a turn 1.
It is good for me. It's a control deck. I mean, they're going to interact, but with a Remora, the place they need to interact is when the Remora is in the stack. Otherwise, they're,
Yeah, and if I can add this on, just to bring up your point earlier, in case anyone missed it, the -8 definitely is a baby Mind's Desire. So I know it sucks to see the Mind's Desire as a card that may get pitched to force, but because we run so many finishers, it's not really the end of the world. Like, it's not like, for example, pitching a Breach to a Chrome Mox. It's not that same level. It's like, it's a strong card, but our commander still does the same thing, and we have other finishers.
And frankly, I don't give a fuck. I would still do that. Like, seriously, because like we just have so many redundant pieces in the deck. Like we talked about how we have Festival of Embers that acts as your own breach, or you have like this, like Mizzix Mastery as a way to kind of act as a mini breach to like cast all your stuff. Like there's just a lot of ways to win in this deck that, and there's not only one true actual win con in a Thassa's. You have Thassa's, but you also have Grapeshot, and you also have the mini Praetor's Graph in You Find Some Prisoners, and technically you can also loop Lightning Bolt with Breach. So like there's lots of different ways to do this.
100%, man. Well, shit, at this point, no, go ahead.
I'm just curious, what would the top card be?
Oh, that was literally what I was curious. Well, we'll say we're bottling Mizzix Mastery. Yeah, we're on the same page, bro. I want to see the top card. Highway Robbery, how does that make you feel?
Oh, that's amazing, because that card, it's a 1 mana draw card.
Right.
And what's cool about it is it's not an additional cost to discard a card or sacrifice a land. So you have to wait until it resolves. So if somebody lets it resolve, then you choose if you discard a card or sacrifice a land. It's not an additional cost. So it's like a lot harder to get blown out when playing this card. And I mean, basically this is, if we get any fast mana in the Remora draws, like if we draw 2 or 3 more cards and we see any amount of fast mana or another land, we're in really good shape in this pod, I think. So
no, 100%. I feel good about that too, man. Well, at that point, thank you so much, Holden. You gave us an amazing deck tech. I just want to say thank you. You're awesome, brother. And I just wanted to ask, before we close things out and we take a small break before we get into the gameplay section and they can see this deck actually in action, is there any closing remarks or anything that you want to let people know about why they should prioritize RAL Monsoon Mage as their #1 Storm cEDH list?
I mean, first of all, right back at you. Thank you for being such an awesome ambassador for this amazing format that we have and the community that you've built. Thank you for hosting such a fantastic Discord channel where people actually give a shit about others' opinions. They don't try to shut each other down. I mean, a great example literally just happened today where someone was a little bit quick to want to say like, hey, I don't know if I would play that card. And it was so cool to see your response in there to be like, hey, well, let's hear them out first. Let's see what the opinion is. And that's the exact way we should be approaching this, because without that sort of mindset, we don't get to innovate and change and get better in this game. And at the end of the day, it is a game, so it's not that serious, but I know a lot of us take it really serious and really care. So it's super cool. And thanks for all you do. And anytime, I will literally come on here and talk your ear off anytime about any deck that I've brewed or do gameplay or whatever. I love it. So I'm all about it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. And as far as why to play this deck, I mean, I think you saw, you go fast, you go burr, you do the thing. And why play it instead of other Izzet decks? First of all, I think it's in a really, really good position right now, because going slightly faster than everybody has never been better, because Roxai is such a dominant force, especially on the West Coast, but just in general, in big tournaments, especially if you're in really big events, you are going to be in a top, if you make it to top 16, you are going to be in a top 16 with a bunch of Roxais. Unless you're literally in Boston, like in the New England states, where for whatever reason, no one there has ever picked up the card Rograk. Outside of there, like, you're going to see a bunch of turbo. And so because of that, you need to be prepared to go faster than them or to somehow beat that game plan. And I personally believe that Control isn't able to beat that game plan enough with a high enough winning percentage to make it worth playing.
That's fair.
At this current moment in the meta. Now, obviously, this is going to change when the meta shifts and all of a sudden a bunch of Stax decks come back in and things move around or whatever. But, it's a living, breathing meta. And I would say, I personally think that it's also better than playing Karkashima right now, or Niv Mizzet, the one that Donna's always on, because those decks are, first of all, Karkashima is kind of a turbo deck, but it's a little slower than this list because it can get its cards out underneath Karkashima. Like, it can go a little faster, because the mana cost of the commander is so freaking low.
Exactly.
You get to just do the thing. But also, it has a lot of cost reduction advantages and the Mind's Desire on the backside advantages. Whereas Niv Mizzet is much more of a control deck, and that's a tried and true deck that's very, very good.
Yes.
But it's very, very good in the hands of very few pilots who really know what they're doing on control and who really have a lot of reps playing. This deck, if you're just a Storm player, a combo player, if you're a Bryant Cook of the world, you can just pick this deck up, see the lines pretty clearly, and go off. Like, there aren't these super deep, complicated lines, and all of the complicated ones, if at all, I've already explained in this deck. So.
Yeah, like if you have any questions about, well, I don't know about this line or this line, just watch the deck tech again. We have touched on it today. Before we let you go, we have a question. What about Jorah? And we wanted to. We're having Bartholomew asking about. I butchered your name. My apology, brother.
Oh, Baphomet.
Baphomet. Yeah, Baphomet saying, "What about Jorah? Talk to us, brother."
For sure. Yeah, that's the homie Shane. Yeah, I do think Jorah is in a good place because it also tries to do a similar thing where it's very linear, very all in, like you slam the commander and then you just kind of manual storm through all of your artifacts and you go off. But the only way that I think that deck is worth actually doing the thing, it's the second one. Yeah, there you go. The only way that I think that deck is worth playing in is if you think that the permanent based storm style of things is a better place to be. And it does a similar thing where you cast the spell, you don't really care about the spell, you just care about the cast because you draw another card. So it's kind of a similar line to where I cast an instant or sorcery and I try to flip my commander and I don't really care too much about it, whether or not the spell resolves. I care somewhat, but like not too much. Yeah. And I think the thing that this deck doesn't do that my deck does is this deck can't be stopped, RAL can't be stopped by a red elemental blast or a blue elemental blast on my commander. Like it is technically a blue color identity on the backside, but it's red on the stack. My commander, I can cast simply off of a land and a Simian Spirit Guide, a land and the Lotus Petal, a Rite of Flame. There's all these cards that are just one card, turbo it out. Yeah. Whereas Jorah, I feel like Jorah is I guess in a way, like maybe a little bit less fragile, I guess, is a way to think about it. Yeah. Although RAL isn't super fragile, but I would say Jorah is a little bit less fragile. But like, we're kind of splitting hairs there. I do think it's really good. And I think regardless, this is the sort of strategy you should be playing. I don't think that people should be playing the kind of mid-range or control strategies of Izzet. That's really, really fair. I'm gonna be honest. Like my opinion for Jorah is, and this is, just recent, like just the bias of like, if you lose against Jorah one time, you will never let a Jorah sit on the board again, and just take up dead air. Like for me personally, after losing the Jorah the first time when I first started playing cEDH, I respected the commander. If I had a lightning bolt and we're in the instep before the turn, I would just pop the Jorah. You know what I'm saying? Or if I see them like cast that first artifact, draw a trigger on the stack, let me just go ahead and just pop Jorah, because the potential of this commander is crazy. And when you flip things around and you see this RAL where, I mean, Jorah can of course get hit by like the damage-based removal, Swords Plowshare, and the Red Elemental Blast. The fact that, this just makes this commander even more crazy. The fact that RAL only can get touched by, of course, the bolt of damage effects and of course bounce effects, but the fact that it's not blue on the front side just makes it that much harder, where you can only either use spot removal, which may be too late, or you can use, you have to burn your Force of Will, which is really premium removal to have to waste on a commander that can get recast again in a deck that's all about mana and pushing forward and moving forward. So it just makes it. And there is something very real to say about the fact that like the kind of upside of RAL once it's resolved versus the upside of Jorah once it's resolved. The upside of Jorah once it's resolved leads to winning. The sort of game where you end up winning is when you can play at sorcery speed, casting historic permanents, right? But the game where RAL wins once it's resolved can actually happen at instant speed. And what's a really weird thing that happens is someone goes to Fatal Push RAL. I'm not saying people play Fatal Push in cEDH, but put any, like, I don't know, what's the commander one, that Deadly Rollick. Someone goes to Deadly Rollick RAL. You can, in response, ritual, like cast an instant speed ritual, and then just go off and then flip RAL, and then the Deadly Rollick fizzles. Like, if someone tries to Swords to Plowshares it, you can fizzle that by flipping RAL. So like, there's weird lines that I think people miss with that, literally Digital Cyclone just said the thing I was saying in chat, plus if they try to remove RAL, you can try to flip it in response to the removal. Exactly. So there's a bit more, like they're different decks, so it's hard. You can't directly compare them, but I would just say to all the points we brought up: the fact that it only costs 2, the fact that you can't use a red elemental blast or a pyroblast on it, the fact that you can instant speed go off as opposed to having to do it more at sorcery speed unless you're on like flash enablers like Born Upon a Wind. All those reasons, and then also being able to flip it to fizzle removal is huge.
Yeah.
So
no, 100%, man, Holden, brother, I just want to say to you once again, thank you so much for coming on. And please, I promise y'all, this ain't gonna be the last time y'all see this brother, because this man be brewing. So please know and trust me, y'all will be seeing this man again in the future. So that is a formal invitation live on the channel that I'm asking you.
Thanks,
in the future, brother. If you have any more hot brews, as you always do, just shoot me a message, brother. I really do love seeing your spicy brews, because they're not just powerful, but like they're very effective. You know what I'm saying? They're no BS. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. I honor you, and I really appreciate you a lot, brother, for coming on, man.
Hell yeah.
100%. And to the rest of the people, I have to just say one more thing before we get into this gameplay. If you're looking for more ways to support the show, there are a plethora, starting off with our ThunderConductor proxies. It is my way to increase access to this amazing format called cEDH. We also have the ThunderConductor merch. I wear it every day. It feels smooth. It feels soft. I love it. It's comfortable. Check it out. Link in the bio. Now, of course, Holden brought it up. We have the ThunderConductor community. We talk, we jam games, we have brewing conversations. Everything is good, and it's all about love. No disrespect, no going nowhere. But if you want extra perks, like you want to be able to play on our live streams, shout outs on our videos and our streams, and also get free proxies and discount codes, check out the Thunder Legion. Come on, it's our Patreon community where you get all those perks and more. And last but not least, if you say AT, I don't want the Patreon, the proxies, or the merch. I just want to say one time for the fun time, I love what you do and I want to support you. Don't worry, I got you. Buy me a coffee. Check the link out in the bio. It keeps me up and keeps the lights on. But with that said, I'll see y'all soon for this RAL Storm gameplay. Peace.